You turned 15 in November. You still gotta wait another year.
I saw your fee sheet for your building permit.
Yeah, Wicker Sham should be in the more of the check. It was actually pretty, it was cheaper than I thought it was going to be.
I just saw the fee sheets. I just saw the fee sheets. I thought they were going to be building in July. We're going to have nothing in July. And I wasn't too impressed with that.
Neither am I, for what they charge us.
But they might be the only one in town.
We'll find out next month.
Who else does urban engineers does aircraft? They're out of Philly. I used to work for them, so I know they have aircraft. I know the guy in charge of that. Really? They have an aviation division.
Well, there's an aviation conference coming in Williamsport next month, and this is where, like, it's like a big show. There's a lot of engineering firms.
I haven't seen all the concept of it either.
It's a green square. John, he said
Okay.
we are one of us gets
Before they start digging foundations, it won't take long. You can have me or you can have it. He's more important if it's all building stuff, and there's nothing for me. If he's not available, I can go for it. It's better if it's just
all right, so
just have him with the ship, contact him, and set up.
all right, so
They can call, they can set up as like inspection.
we have that trade system here also. Just me and
The train systems isn't involved.
a little bit.
Yeah, but as far as like, this is more about making sure they can call out to their customer. I don't have an inspection of the project.
So, well, what I'll do is when he takes up the permit, I'll tell him to schedule.
We might need to get, supervisor. Yeah, they need to be there when the boards were tapped. Then they need to be tapped their system. You got to wait for DEPs for it. Yes. Right. But they need to be there when the construction is happening. When we report on the road. Right. Okay. All right. We're going to what happened, that's what I need to be on.
Okay. All right. Good, good. How are you?
Okay, we're going to begin the meeting now. Welcome everybody to the September 17th, 2024 West Goshen Township Board of Supervisors meeting. We're going to begin tonight's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please rise.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Okay, before we begin tonight, just a couple of announcements that this meeting may be audio and video recorded by third parties. We're also live streaming on our YouTube channel, and there are extra copies of the agenda in the back of the room if anybody would like a copy of the agenda. And that brings us to item number 3, which is public comment. If there's anybody present tonight that would like to make a comment or ask a question of the board regarding something that is not on tonight's agenda, now is the time for you to do that. Is there any public comment? Yes, Dr. White?
Good evening, Doug White, West Goshen Township. I have 2 comments. May the board please consider a storefront safety ordinance or amendment to our existing code. I went over to the new Chick-fil-A. It's not bad, but the ADA access should be more protected, and that could be done, I think. And the second comment I have, or question, is there anything in our code regarding required radon testing on new construction?
No, there's not.
Okay. I think that should be looked into, radon testing, and if required, radon remediation system on new construction.
Those limits are set by the state, and if there is a threshold, then they're required to put in a mitigation system. I know because I went through that personally when I sold my previous house.
So the requirement comes from the
There's a minimum level that's set by the state, and if you do your testing and it exceeds that level, then you're required to put in a mitigation system. And I see Andrea nodding, so that tells me that what I'm saying is accurate.
So are we requiring testing now?
We don't require it. It's, all those tests when you sell a home are elected to by the buyer, and they can choose whether or not to do that. I don't think there's any capability for the township in which to require something like that.
Okay, well, it seems like it's health, safety, welfare, and quality of life, so I just was asking about it. Thank you.
I'll look into that, Doug, to make sure. I'm sure you're right, Chris, but we could definitely check on it. Okay, any other public comment? Yes, Mr. Golden.
Charlie Golden, West Goshen. It is Constitution and Citizen Day. Yesterday, the White House issued a proclamation for Constitution and Citizenship Day. In part, it says the founders put the power to decide our nation's future in the hands of we the people. Our Constitution Day and Citizen Day, and during Constitution Week, we recommend we recommit to preserving our republic, perfecting our union, and ensuring our democracy survives and thrives. So with that, I'd like to again formally announce the West Goshen Budget Watchdog Group. We met once and we came up with a mission. Our mission is we are nonpartisan citizens. We're a nonpartisan citizen group looking to represent the 11,000 households in our township who don't presently voice their opinions. We will review the budgets, track spending, and send out newsletters to those households who sign up. So what we do, we review the annual budget plans and current spending. We question the Board of Supervisors as needed. We provide up to 11,000 households with more details, and we represent taxpayers at the township public meetings. What do the homeowners do? Well, they stay informed and provide us their concerns. They sign up for our latest news. You can do that at savepafirst@gmail.com. That's savepafirst@gmail.com. You can send your name, your address, and your email contact. Why? We need checks and balances to fight excessive taxes, spending, and large reserve funds. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Golden. Is there another comment? Yes, Ms. Swart.
Good evening. evening, supervisors and staff. Just a couple comments and requests. I am a member, proud member of the new budget committee, and it's a shame it had to be self-organized by citizens after I requested such a committee for the past 9 or 10 years. But we'll try to get it going, and I'm happy Mr. Golden reached out to me, and I can participate with this group. Couple requests. Since it's budget season, I've asked your consideration in the past for capabilities for Zoom meetings. I think we should join Chester County, Westchester Area School District, East Goshen Township, West Goshen Township, I'm sorry, East Goshen Township, West Whiteland, West Town. It was a big step when we started streaming them on live on YouTube, but it's difficult, I believe, to monitor YouTube. I've watched on YouTube and have submitted questions in the past that get missed, and I understand why they do. So I think allowing Zoom would just make it a lot more citizen-friendly. And if you notice the watches on our YouTube channel, they are getting quite a few views, so I think people are really interested. They just might not show up at these meetings. So I hope you consider that, adding that expense into the 2025 budget. And also, I'd like you to consider, along with Westchester Area School District and Chester County, they have 2 public comment sections, one at the beginning of the meeting for anyone that's in attendance that wishes to make public comment on any agenda items. That, of course, allows the board to hear comments, concerns, ask questions about what the supervisors will be discussing and voting on before they actually deliberate and make their motions. And then again, the public comment at the end of the meeting would allow for anything that's not on the agenda moving forward, and maybe could be a new item for business on the next meeting. And then one last thing, I think. On the earned income tax ordinance that was enacted, I believe, at the beginning of 2023, it's my understanding that there's an ordinance and then there's resolutions set by the board to determine the volunteer tax credit on real estate taxes. And I'm just curious what that amount of tax credit is for the volunteers on real property. Is that their entire West Goshen property bill or portion?
It's the entirety.
Okay, and then how about on the earned income tax credit?
It's capped at $500.
It is capped at $500. Okay, I just remember seeing, I went back and looked, and it was clear on a draft ordinance in October 22 that it was capped at $500, but in the final ordinance, it doesn't appear that there was the cap written in there. And the reason I looked into that tonight, I would like to ask your consideration in tabling the decision on the agenda item tonight that for a volunteer property tax credit to perhaps get legal opinion on if a volunteer is just a partial owner of a home, doesn't own it with he and his wife or he and his spouse, but if he has a 50% interest in his property, should he get the full property tax rebate? And I think that might be the case tonight, so I'm asking your consideration in getting a legal opinion on that, or maybe that's a board decision. Does that volunteer just get 50% the tax credit? So, okay, thank you.
To the best of my knowledge, the law is not set up that. To the best of my knowledge of the law, the enabling legislation that allows the township to set that up doesn't include that criteria.
So it's not written anywhere in...
No, not that I'm aware of, Madam
We
Chair.
have to follow the criteria as written.
Well, I know, and the ordinance is missing the definition, as far as it has a definition for occupied real estate or real estate ownership, but it should say 100% or jointly with your spouse or what have you. But when it's clearly on the deed that it's 50% ownership, should we give the entire tax credit to the other 50% that is not? I an actual.
I'm not aware of that being written in the legislation.
No, we have to follow the legislation as it's written. We can't make our own rules in the ordinance. So
I'm happy to follow up with the solicitor about it though, to be clear.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments or questions? No? Okay. So moving on to agenda item number 4, which is the presentation of the annual report from the Westchester Public Library. And I believe we have Ms. Stanton here to give us a report. Welcome, Ms.
I
Stanton.
have the controller for you here. Down will advance it. Your slideshow. The down arrow will advance it, and the bottom will move it. And here's your show.
Hello, good evening. Again, I'm Maggie Stan. I'm the new director at the Westchester Public Library. I started back at the end of April. And thank you for having me here tonight to talk about what we've been doing at the Westchester Library and funding for next year. So just a brief overview of the Westchester Library. We serve a population of over 53,000. We have 11,600 cardholders. We had over 150,000 checkouts. That also includes the e-materials, magazines as well. We had over 76,000 visits, and we had 243 programs last year with almost 5,000 attendees. In our collection, we have 47,000 physical materials. That doesn't include the online ones that we get through Flipster and also through the Libby app. So libraries are more than just books, which we clearly have those. Magazines and newspapers. Our e-materials are accessible through the Libby and Flipster apps. Libby is for ebooks and e-audiobooks, and for the Flipster app, that is actually magazines, and you can actually get back issues. You can get the app and do it on your phone, any smart device, and you can also do it from the desktop. Part of the Chester County Library system also includes access to Canopy, which is an online streaming source. So you can watch some movies, not the latest and the greatest, but they do have access to movies and some television shows. Our databases, just to name a few, access to New York Times, Driver's Education, Mango Languages, and the Ancestry Library Edition, which you can access by actually being in any of the Chester County libraries. We also have video games, DVDs, CDs, and we also have STEM science kits, which I know my kids love. They have like bugs wrapped in acrylic, and they have them for different levels and grades for children. Our program services include, obviously, children's story times, which actually helps get children to be kindergarten ready for formal instruction. We're going to be having some dance classes coming up soon. Our youth and teens actually have volunteer opportunities and programs. We just actually had a bake-off, which was quite delicious. We also have adult lectures in a variety of subjects, from local history to local author events. We're actually going to be doing one with Nita Prose next Thursday, the 26th, at the Chester County Historical Center. If you want to buy tickets, please take a look at our website. We also have summer reading events and programming. This year, we actually had a huge increase of our summer reading for the adults. We do bingo cards, and last year we only got about 30 back in 2023. This year we had 216 participants. There was a raffle to win a Kindle. I think that had something to do with it. And for the children, we had over 424 register for the summer reading, and we are just finishing up giving out the prizes, little medals, kind of going with that Olympic theme. And then we also offer test proctoring for any virtual students out there who are doing college or high school. We can proctor those tests for you at our location. So our technology, we have computers, printers, copiers. We also have hotspots you can check out for a variety of rates depending on how many days. And we also have outdoor seating, so you can still access our Wi-Fi when we're open or closed. Most libraries these days also now have a library of things. Our biggest ones are the Elmwood Park Zoo, Longwood Gardens, which only 3 libraries in Chester County were invited to purchase those. You have to be invited. We also have the Helicopter Museum. Some of these are now printable, so you don't even have to come to the library to pick them up. You can just print them out at home. We also have special cake pans, so if you have to do a kids party and make cocoa melon, you don't have to get it. Just stop by the library and see the variety that you can get. And if you have a need to donate, please let us know. So this is not possible without proper funding. Last year, our revenue was almost $560,000. A bulk of it actually comes from the state and the county. That's about 37% of our funding. That is divided up amongst all the member libraries in a very complex funding formula to divvy it up between all of us. We actually raised 27% of our own funds through our grant applications, fundraising drives, and other avenues. And then the remainder is actually supplied by our municipalities in our service area, including West Goshen. So when you're looking at just the service area, sorry for the typo there, a bulk of it is actually coming from Westchester Borough because we're a tax referendum to them. But the rest is coming from our 6 municipalities. And I have to say congratulations to West Goshen because you guys are 14% of that pie, so thank you very much. However, when you look at the per capita rates, you can actually see that West Goshen is at $1 compared to some of the others. Now, the state has been asking all the libraries to get the municipalities to get them up to $5 per capita. We're looking to get to 2. The average in Chester County is 3. So where would this money be going? Well, as you can see from this chart, we actually get 25% of our cardholders are from West Goshen, the ones in the service area. And they actually represent about 29%, I can't see it from here, sorry, of our checkouts for the entire year of 2023. So they are using the library at a higher rate than the other municipalities. So we are just requesting a modest increase from $1 to $1.15 to go from $25,000 to $28,750, which is only about a $3,700 increase. So we are grateful, obviously, for the increase from last year, and we're hoping to keep that momentum going forward in an incremental fashion. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. That was very
Sorry if I talked
informative. I like learning about the cake pans. It's really neat that you guys offer this. Okay, so does the board want to open up for discussion a possible increase to the library for 2025?
I actually have 2 questions. The funding, does that cover Exton and the borough libraries?
From
Representing here?
No, that only includes our service area, so that does not include Exton's. That includes Westchester, West Goshen, Westtown, Thornberry, Binghamton, Thornberry, and East Bradford.
Okay. And then on the pie, I noticed as far as library revenue, it says fines, the fines and fees. Is that for post-security kind of thing?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, the hotspots and anything that we get for somebody who doesn't return a book so late that it's a lost book or it's gone into collections, we do collect a small $10 fee for that as well.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question. You're new.
Yes.
And you're
To this
larger
library.
and bigger, which is fantastic. It's usually outdoors. Do you have any plans for the future for the library?
Yes, I
Let's
do.
hear that.
Yes, I'm very excited. So one of the things I want to bring to the library is a 3D printer. There's not a lot of them that have it in the county, and they are getting cheaper. And we want to start doing programming with children, so that way we can work on some more STEM and engineering, like building crafts. We did that at my previous library. I want to start bringing in more adult programming that would actually be taking place maybe in buildings like this, because you guys have so much ample parking compared to where we are. And we're also looking to move some of our programming outside next year to the different municipality parks. At my previous library, Malvern, we started doing it in more of the community, because we want everybody to realize that we're their local library, and the best way to do that is to go out into the community more. We're also looking into our renovation project. We have a grant out for that. We're hoping to get new shelving and hopefully some more laptops rather than desktops, things like that.
And all in close one.
Yes, but we're actually working on a grant right now, and we're hoping that we get it. That would actually help cover a huge cost for us. We're hoping to hear any day now.
I know that Dr. White had brought up in the past, would it be possible to have an event at the township building?
I would love to do that. So, and from what I talked to with Chris, he said that that would be possible. If it was like a speaker, at my previous library, we had a really small community room, so if we wanted to do anything with more than 15 people, it was wonderful that we were able to use the room that was available at that borough. And that really helped a lot and helped get people into the library and see us more, and the programming went through the roof. So.
Well, how much was the increase from last year?
$5,000. It went from $20,000 to $25,000, but it hadn't been increased in, I want to say, at least a decade.
It was a while.
It had been a while.
Yeah, we were at 20,000, and last year we decided as a board to increase that by 5,000. Does the board have any strong feelings either for or against an increase that they'd like to share?
I think I don't see it as a problem at all. I mean, I think you provide a real cultural enhancement to our community. And I think it's important to support that.
Thank you. That's our goal, our mission, so.
Yeah, and I think that being that we're the second largest populated township in Chester County, we should support the library, and we should also do our share. So I'm completely for this small increase.
I am too. I think it's good for the children in the community and adults, so yes, I'm board too.
Wow, well, you're lucking out this year.
Thank you.
I think it's a nice substantial increase again for the second year in a row. So I hope that it goes to some additional programming for sure. And I do want to echo what Mr. Woolman and Dr. White has said in the past, where we really like to see some programming here in West Goshen as well for our residents. So
That's what I'm looking forward to doing. In fact, I'll actually be here for the event this weekend. So.
for the open house. Great.
Yes.
Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, so we will consider your request, and I appreciate you coming out.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Stanton from the public? I'm sorry, I forgot to ask. No?
Nice job.
Nice job, right?
You should ask.
All right, thank you, Ms. Stanton. Okay, moving on to item number 5, which is the discussion regarding the following application before the zoning hearing board. Application number 9-2024, which is an application for Brandywine Regional Airport and Merrill Gardens for property located at 1201 and 1205 Ward Avenue, seeking a variance from section 84-41B4 of the West Goshen Township zoning ordinance. Ms. Smith is not here tonight, but Mr. Bayshore will present this on her behalf, so I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll give an introduction and turn it over to our township engineer. So before the board this evening is zoning hearing board application number 9-2024. The applicant is the Brandywine Regional Airport. However, this application covers property at both 1201 Ward Avenue and 1205 Ward Avenue. The subject properties are located in the IC Industrial Commercial Zoning District. The application material has been provided to the board. The Brandywine Regional Airport has received grants to upgrade its facilities, and in order to do so, they must acquire additional property that currently exists in an easement on property owned by Merrill Gardens via lot line change. The applicant is seeking relief from section 8441B4 of the Township zoning ordinance in order to complete a lot line change. This section is in regards to the area and bulk regulations for the zoning district pertaining to the construction of an assisted and/or independent living facility. Specifically, 8441B4E requires a minimum green area of 45%. Currently, the Merrill Gardens property has 48.73% of green area, and the lot line change would result in the property having 41.85% of green area. The application is scheduled to go before the zoning hearing board on September 23rd. The applicant is also requesting a series of waivers from the Township Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance. However, as it has to go through the subdivision process, we recommend that those waivers be considered at that time. Brian, is there anything additional that you would like to add?
I can just give a brief overview of the project.
One thing, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no construction associated with
Correct,
this.
no construction. Before you is the Brandywine Airport main runway. The taxiway is along Ward Avenue. This is Merrill Gardens at the end, about 2/3 of the way down the runway. You can see the property line does extend across the taxiway and all the way across the runway. The proposal is to create a new property line at the rear of Merrill Gardens and bring all of the property into the airport. There would still be a slight easement for part of the clear zone, but the clear zone is all outside the fence line, correct?
Correct.
But there's an area outside the fence, on the back side of the fence, and there's a stormwater basin here. Is that stays, that's Merrill's?
Correct.
So they still maintain that?
Correct.
Okay, so this is Merrill Gardens property,
Merrill Gardens property extends across the runway.
That extends across the runway. What the airport is looking to do is to acquire that property, and Merrill will still have an easement on the property where the stormwater facilities are, along that strip of land.
Correct, because 125 feet from the center line of the runway is the runway safety area. So nothing can ever be put there. You can't even park a plane there.
And that's where this is right here.
Okay? 250 feet from the center line of the runway is the runway obstacle-free area. So in other words, nothing can ever be constructed there. A shed, a patio, trees, nothing can be there because of, that's the obstacle-free area for the airplanes. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to maintain their stormwater management on their property, so that way we wouldn't have to give them an easement if they needed to service it. But it's satisfying both needs. It's satisfying our needs of having the runway and taxiway on our property and having it off of theirs, because having a runway on your property is a liability. So it's going to reduce their liability insurance, and then we will satisfy the FAA of owning the property.
It just seems odd that this is not a situation you have anywhere else, correct, except for this one particular spot here?
Well, there is one more spot, and it's at the east. It's at the east end of the runway.
Okay.
But the way the easement is written, it's a concrete easement that, for now, the FAA is accepting. But eventually, we will be talking to that owner to see if we can take control of that also. It's all based on funding from the FAA. And back in 2003, the FAA gave the airport, it's called a modification of standard. So in other words, you're working on borrowed property. As long as you defend your easements, we will fund you. Well, now they're actually changing their rule on that, and they're kind of rescinding that. And they want the airport to have clear title to the runway and taxiway. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to head that off before we get that all-sought letter saying that we can't do nothing for you anymore because you don't own the land.
Right. So then do they have clear ownership of the stormwater management system or no?
Yeah.
Yes.
Stormwater management system is located.
Yes. Merrill Gardens will. Yes.
Merrill Gardens will have ownership of this.
Yes. And our stormwater management is on our property.
Okay.
It will be on our property.
Okay.
So just to be clear, the other situation on the eastern side, will you be coming for the zoning here board to again ask for a variance there?
Yes. Yes.
But not, we don't know when.
Yeah.
Right, it's one, we have a lot of projects going on, and I'm the president, so I can only do so many things at once.
Yeah.
So, you know, we want to clean this up, clean some other stuff up, and then we'll move on to that.
It seems like it makes a lot of sense, and I'm kind of shocked that there was an area of the runway that was not the property of the airport to begin with. It's just strange.
Right, and again, because of, I don't mean to, you know, bash anybody, but previous administrations, it fell on deaf ears. They didn't want to listen, and everything got pushed down the road. And then when I took over back in 2022, I started categorizing things that needed to be done. So we need a new runway. Our runway is in poor condition. And again, to get federal funding for the runway, you really need to own it.
Right.
So this is a key so I can get the funding to put a new runway in.
Makes a lot of sense to me. Does the board have any issues, questions about this project or this proposal?
No, I just want all the waivers that they're requesting also.
That's going to come before you at subdivision. This is
So
just,
sit down and go
the only
before.
thing for tonight is for zoning only.
Okay, just not the waiver, gotcha.
Get it
Board-
to the zoning hearing board first. When they get to the zoning hearing board, then they apply for their.
Yeah, so I guess my question is does the board want to take a position on this or just remain neutral and let the zoning board? Neutral? Neutral? Okay, so we're going to remain neutral and not take a position. But thank you for coming and showing us your project, and
And good luck with it.
yeah, good luck.
Thank you for hearing it, and thanks.
All right, thanks so much. Okay, so moving on to item number 6, which is the discussion regarding the 2025 capital projects and the updated 10-year capital plan for West Goshen Township. Would you like to introduce this?
Certainly, Madam Chair. We also have our department heads here this evening, as well as our finance director, to answer any questions that the board may have. So before the board this evening is discussion regarding capital projects for the 2025 budget and an update to the township's 10-year capital plan. Township staff held a meeting on August 12th in order to discuss updates to the capital plan. We also held a meeting with 2 members of the Board of Supervisors to review the updated 10-year plan. The total 2025 capital plan across all departments, based on the information that's provided, is approximately $2.5 million, and then I provided the allocation for each department for the board to review. We noted on there items that were outlined as being carried forward from previous years, as well as new additions that are highlighted in yellow. One thing I will note is the largest share of this is the Parks Department. However, 54% of the allocation represents the second phase of the improvements to West Goshen Community Park, which is being partially funded by grants that have been awarded, and one that is still outstanding. Certain items in the Parks Department have been outlined for the future park being dedicated in the Woodlands and Greystone. There has been a recommendation for the installation of cameras at certain entry points to assist with security. We did put a placeholder for those items based on an evaluation that was done by 5 members of our team. But there is an issue regarding the lack of available locations to provide such items as electrical service. But that we had that discussion, we wanted to put that in there for the board's consideration. Also, I'd like to note that on the equipment schedule for replacement, there is one item in the streets department that's being proposed to be sold and not replaced. So overall, again, about $2.5 million, which is a little bit higher than in 2024. But again, a lot of that, the largest portion of that are a second phase of improvements to West Goshen Community Park. So I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, we have our department heads to review the information that's in there.
Okay, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
If it pleases the board, do you want to go through this, I guess, department by department with any questions you might have? Does that sound like a good approach? Tina, I know that you were one of the supervisors along with Sean that were involved in those initial meetings. Is that correct? So you might have some answers to some of our questions. But so beginning with what is this? The administration department. We have the $5,120 virtual server software and licensing. So who's here on behalf of the administration to speak on that? Go ahead, Mr. Baistro. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
So the virtual server software and licensing, that's essentially, Christine, correct me if I'm wrong, that's our server for like our emails, our...
And it's, that item's actually shared with the police department, so that cost is allocated between the two of them.
Yes, if you look down further on the police allocation, you'll see a similar allocation for the police
For
department.
5,000 from them? So is it 10,000 total or?
It's a little bit higher. I forget what the exact allocation is between the two of them, but I just wanted to point that out so when you look at it, you know, there's two pieces that go to that path.
It's approximately
It's about
20.
12,000.
I see.
I'm sorry, 16,000, 17,000 for theirs.
So it's approximately $22,000 split, the majority of which is done by the police
It's about
department.
60/40.
And it's a licensing, so it's just to...
Software and licensing, yeah.
So it's a new software?
No, it's just like updated software that updated what we currently have.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was originally, looks like this was originally put in place in beginning of 2020. So it'll be about 5 years old on the replacement cycle.
Okay.
One item I'll note, I had a conversation with our mechanic, John Weddy, who's actually here this evening. We had put the fire marshal vehicle, scheduled that for replacement in 2023 and move that to 2026. However, based on my discussion with Mr. Wenny today, we're recommending that we shift that back to 2025 because we're noticing some rust and corrosion and some issues with the vehicle, so it might be beneficial to replace it before it becomes too far gone.
Okay, and that would be under which department?
It's under administration and it's it's line item number 5. John, that's all correct, right?
Yes.
And that's the 65,000?
Yeah.
Correct.
You're proposing we put into 2025?
Yes.
Can I say something on that? We actually carried that forward to 2024, so it's actually already approved in the 2024 budget, so we could really just do it as it would be a carryover, continued carryover. We already transferred the money for that.
Okay.
So.
We approved of that last year for this year?
Yeah, and we haven't purchased it yet, so we just.
Why haven't we purchased it? It just wasn't time?
There's been supply delays and all kinds of stuff like that.
There were supply delays, and there were also, we just kind of made the decision internally that it wasn't necessary at this time to replace it. And when we were doing our initial review, we talked about pushing it to 2026 as opposed to doing it next year and placing it as a carry forward item. However, when John talked to me today, he recommends putting it in 2025 because of the rust and condition issues with it. Sorry, you said it's got rust on the frame.
So there is no like holes in the frame, but the rust is substantial. So there's no safety issue with this. I would rather see it go before it's not, you're gonna have to either do like a frame restoration to it or any other type of repairs because it's not gonna be worth as much as it is.
And this is a Tahoe, right?
This is the Tahoe.
And would you replace it with a Tahoe?
I believe was, it could be replaced with the Tahoe or it could be replaced if you wanted to do the electric. I would say maybe the Ford Lightning. That would be a comparable vehicle as well.
How often is the vehicle used? Is it like an everyday thing? And how many miles are on the one that we're talking about getting rid of?
I don't know the answer to that question.
So I'm not sure on the miles. I want to say
I think it's around 40.
40. Yeah, I was going to say
40,000 miles?
40,000 miles.
Where do we keep it?
It's
Out back.
right out back.
It's
Is
with
it-
our administrative parking.
Is
area.
it, so it's not in a garage or anything?
No. None of our administrative or pool vehicles are garaged.
And it's a 2012, right?
It's
So
2012. So it's over the replacement
Yeah,
plan.
it's 2012. Is there any problem with that being replaced with an electric vehicle? You mentioned.
And I believe Andrew had a point on that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out if we, or when we do replace it, preferably with a truck, because new standards are, the gear that we wear carries a lot of carcinogens, and we obviously, it's better to keep them outside of the actual vehicle, so that would be my suggestion. We can have like a slide-out tray to keep our gear and things in like that.
You have any problem with it being an electric truck?
As long as it works.
Okay.
Okay.
Just to follow up with that question, item number 8, car number 18, that's a White Explorer. That's supposed to be replaced in 2027, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any reason why that could not be replaced with an electric vehicle?
That would be a policy determination from the board. John outlined replacements for both conventional internal combustion engines and electric vehicles. We can certainly look at that if that's the board's desire.
Yeah, when the time comes.
Cars 17 and 16 are scheduled to be replaced with electric vehicles. I don't see why we can't do number 18 also.
I'm just wondering what the price difference is going to be between like a Ford Lightning and a, let's say so an electric versus a standard pickup truck. Because I have no issue with replacing it with a truck because of the carcinogens you're talking about. I think that's totally reasonable. I don't know how much the Ford Lightning is going for. Does anybody know that?
The one we purchased this year for the police department before outfitting was approximately 62. So that was $62,000 for the vehicle. I believe the outfitting for the fire marshal side would be, we estimate around 7, John.
Yeah.
So I'd be looking at about $69,000, $70,000.
But also, we did a cost analysis on this before. After 5 years, you're just making money, really saving money. From the gasoline you don't have to buy.
Well, that 7,000 outfitting would be done to any vehicle that we would purchase, right?
Any marked vehicle, yes.
So even if we were to get a Tahoe again, it would still be the same.
Yeah, so and since the chief has gone through it, chief, the outfitting for, say, the Mach-E isn't really too different than, say, a traditional vehicle tractor. Is it
What we
different?
get isn't different, but getting it is a little more expensive and a little harder to get because it's brand new, as opposed to the 4 interceptors that are allowed. But as time goes on, they'll catch up, I'm sure.
Well, I think the one example you gave today with the antenna, the front arming,
Yeah.
we can't put the antenna on the roof because it's a metal roof, so we have to put a window there. That kind of stuff is coming up that we weren't aware of. And then it's longer to come in, and it takes more money, and
Christine, you said it was in the budget already for this year. Does that include the outfitting, or is that just the price of the car?
Oh, the total all-in cost that would be is what's approved in the budget. And I just mentioned that because if we want to move it to 2025, I wouldn't re-slot it in the 2025 year here because we've already transferred the money to capital reserve
Yeah.
for that. So I don't want to, double dip that number.
So we'd probably transfer this instead of remove the amount for 26 and just highlight it in orange as a
Yeah.
carry forward.
Yeah, we would
Yeah, I was
just
gonna
ask
say.
for the
And put in the additional amount for outfitting or desires to go with electric, whatever the price difference is.
Yeah, we
Adjust
just
it.
do like we did last year, when we put, over and above the original budget estimate. So we've had some of that on the vehicles with the supply chain issues. But the costs have gone up from what was originally budgeted in the time period that we have to be able to get the vehicles.
So then when would you want to order it, and when would we be able to get it? Does anybody know?
I looked at John for that. We tend to put our orders in as soon as they open up so that we can get first crack at whatever vehicles may be available.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's approved, you'd want to order it as soon as January to get it coming because of the supply issues.
I mean, if it's a carryover and it's in this year's budget, can we not approve it, can we not order it before January?
Yes, you can.
You can.
Yeah, you can, because it's already approved.
Okay, so that's something to consider for the board, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing that would have to be considered would be any potential price difference. That would be it.
Right.
And would that come before us? It would
Absolutely.
come before the board before, okay. So maybe we can look into doing that. Is the board comfortable with that?
Yes.
Is it kind of the direction we're going with this, with the fire vehicle?
So just to understand, we want to look at the cost difference between conventional and electric and go whichever route is the board's direction.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, Ms.
I
Swart.
think a suggestion that hybrids are also looked at. I'm just looking at car and drivers, hybrid trucks, 2025 Ford Maverick, that's a 10 out of 10 rating, car and driver. 2025 Ram, 1500. I think hybrids should still be considered.
Sure, we'll look at hybrids as well.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions for the administration items?
yeah, yes, I have one. I know when we were in the meeting, we had talked about handicapped door entry on the admin building from a capital standpoint. I didn't see that added here.
So that would be included in facilities. We actually just got the price from Great Valley Lock Shop today.
Okay.
So we do have a budgetary estimate on that.
Okay, good. And then, I guess we talked about the speaker system for the main meeting room.
So Mike diligently brought in the company that we utilize for the system. We've made some tweaks, and as you can hear, it seems to be working okay. So right now, we're kind of monitoring it to see if there's any issues.
Okay, that's not in the budget though.
No, I don't think we included any pricing in there because we wanted to monitor it first to see if there's any issues.
Okay.
So we did those after in the last week, I'd say.
Okay, and then the bio, for entry for the employees from them doing.
That's on the agenda for later on tonight.
Any furniture needs for administration?
So those would be minor capital. They wouldn't be part of the capital
It
plan.
wouldn't be
No.
on this, okay.
I have one question. Item 11, the township manager's car. I know Mr. Bayshore has said he'd like us to consider, you considered a private car, your own car. using that. Do we need that in the budget?
So if we do, this is just a capital plan for the next 10 years. Even if we were to do that, we are reaching a point where we may have not enough vehicles to serve our day-to-day operating needs. So it's not, we would turn that into a pool vehicle.
Yeah, we wouldn't get rid of it, we would
Correct.
just use it for a pool.
Yeah, because we've reached a point where between selling items, where we've sold enough items where we're coming to a point where we don't have enough vehicles to service day-to-day operations.
Okay.
Okay.
So that would, the title of that would just change.
Gotcha.
Are we ready to move on then from administration? Over to the engineering department? I don't see anything in the column for 2025.
The only item, just so the board's aware, the one item that's going to be in the general budget is Brian's been pricing out spare batteries for the drone. But that would be a minor capital item.
Okay, so how often are we using the drone?
Right now, we have not flown the new drone yet, and we are still going through the training for licensing.
Okay.
We have the practice drone, the old one to practice with, so we crashed that one and not the new one.
You crashed it?
Well, typically, it's not if you crash, it's when you crash, when you start flying drones until you get used to it.
Okay.
So we both have started taking the training courses to get licensed, but until we're licensed, our drones are too big, you cannot fly without license.
Right. Okay.
So that's what we're working on.
When are you looking to take the test? You have any idea?
There's 76 courses to take before you can take the test, so it's going to be a little while.
Mm.
Hopefully getting it done through the winter, and then being able to take the test before spring and start flying next year.
I'm just curious, would it be advantageous to not get certified and hire somebody just for the few times we're using the drone to pay them to fly it?
No, because we can use the drone for anything we need to, then when we can start using it for projects, for mapping projects, and also support projects. Anytime we start doing work now with any road work, we can fly the road ahead of time before we do it, instead of waiting to hire somebody to come in and pay their rates to do it.
We had also talked about it being used to support the police department, didn't we?
Well, the police has their own.
You have-
No, it's the same one.
Oh, it's the same one you're using?
Yeah.
And who's qualified to fly it on your end?
So we have someone taking a test this week.
Really? That's great. And they're the only one, I guess, that's gonna be able to fly. Man, it'll be the first, right? Okay, yes, Dr. White, you had a question.
Is there a simulator you can use for learning? A drone simulator? They could have flight simulators?
It's not as, because it's more based upon the conditions with the weather and the drone, the wind and all that, each drone's unique for that. The simulator just you could practice with it, but it's not the same as having the drone and dealing with trees and wind and all that.
But you do have access to some simulator to help you help the process along?
I think there's access to it through the training program we're going through.
Okay.
Did we sell our old drone?
Yes.
We did, right?
Yeah, we had two drones. We sold the large drone, but we still have the small drone.
Okay.
Which
And
is
that's the one you're practicing?
That's the one we will practice with, yes.
I hope we're not crashing or losing. Okay. All right, if there's no other questions for the engineering department, let's move on to the parks department, of which there are quite a few things listed here. So we have a few riding mowers. I know Doreen is here. Do you want to, I guess, add anything about your needs for the mowers?
No, not really. I mean, these won't be the prices, we'll put the other ones up in this a bit. These seem a lot higher than what you're used to seeing because this is without the trade-in that we normally used to incorporate into this.
Right. And so how many vehicles or mowers would we be trading in?
There's 4 on there that are out this year.
Okay.
Doreen, can you explain, I mean, these were purchased back in 2022, so they will have been used, I guess, for 3 seasons. Why do they need to be replaced at this time?
Because they've come out of warranty, that's why they made this rotation years and years ago. It's because they're out of warranty for fixing them when they start to break down. There's 2 of them. We were looking at them today. There's two that I think I would like to push off because the hours aren't that as high as the other ones on them. So,
Which two are those?
Which numbers is those?
number, I mean, they're all the same price, but number 7 and number 2 and number 7 have the lowest hours on them.
So on lines 51 and 46.
And you'd say push those off for another year, maybe?
Yeah, I feel comfortable doing that.
Okay. Which leaves 2 mowers for next year
Right.
with the trade-in value of whatever you said 4?
For what?
Sorry, so we're trading in 2.
If I push 2
Yes, we're gonna trade in 2.
to-
And the trade-in value is probably gonna be something around what?
Well, John looked up some of the comps for me today, and anywhere between 85 and 10.5
Okay.
trade-ins.
That's,
So.
I mean, for selling, sorry, not
That would be
trade-in.
selling.
Oh,
That's
selling.
municipal, I'm sorry.
Trade-in values would probably most likely be low.
Yeah, last
So
year
then
we
would
did
we
trade in
sell
our
them?
number.
Or municipal.
We will.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing with everything so far this year.
Okay. Well, I'm fine with 2 mowers for next year. How's the board feel? Yeah?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
And then, as far as the gators are concerned, what is the status of the gators that we have now? And what would they be used for? Would they be used for the same thing, or are you sort of anticipating these as like Greystone gators?
Yeah, exactly.
Greystone?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, we have 2 that we keep up at the skate park right now, so it'll just be replacing those that are up there. Okay.
How old are those ones, do you know?
5 years old.
They're 5.
Yeah, I thought we talked about 54 and 59 being just for Greystone. But it's not marked as 54 as Greystone, 59 is. So did we change that? Or is it still earmarked for Greystone?
I'm sorry, what was that, Tina?
When we were in the meeting, we talked about 54 and 59 earmarked for Greystone, but I only see 59, I'm sorry, the Gator. But I only see 59 marked for Greystone, 54 is not marked for Greystone.
I only had from that meeting that one was going to be specifically for Greystone, right? Both of them are kept up there, but
No, we'll
only,
keep 2, but we're gonna.
2 will be kept
we'll
up there,
have-
but only one is specifically for Greystone, right?
No, I thought there were 2.
Well, we'll be using both of them for
Okay.
at the skate park and Greystone since
Okay.
they're right next to each other, that we won't be trailering anything up there, we'll keep them up there, use what we have for the.
Okay, so they'll be dedicated to Greystone, those 2 Gators, correct?
Right, not specifically, I will be using them at the skate park as well, and if I needed to pull them to go someplace else, I would just temporarily, but yes, they will be used in Greystone.
Okay, is there any one that's going to be only dedicated to Greystone, any of the Gators? Or it's going to stay there, do you think?
Well, they'll stay up there as long as something, crazy doesn't happen, and I need them, if one breaks down and I need it in another park, then I might take one, but.
Okay, the reason why I ask is because.
I understand.
Yeah, we have $1 million that we
Right,
can
I
use,
mean-
but it has to stay there in order for that to happen. Yeah.
I can never use it anywhere else.
No, you won't be able to.
Is that true? Is that correct?
So based
Yeah,
on
we
my
have to-
review of the financing documents, there was specific equipment that was supposed to be acquired for the park and its ongoing maintenance. That's in the financing document.
And it has to stay there. We looked into that after the budget meeting. If it's purchased with that money. That's why I asked you if there's any.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So like when East Goshen borrows our gators every year, I wouldn't be able to lend it to him?
No, it wouldn't be able to leave the park.
Nope.
It can only be used at the park. Yeah. That's why I'm figuring out where the money's gonna come from, where the best spot is to come from.
I
That's
mean,
why I
if you
asked
don't
you
want me to ever let it leave the park, I won't, so.
Well, I don't want it to be just sitting there.
Well, that
We could
means
be
we would
using
have-
it out there.
we would
But
have
we're
one
gonna need
gator.
it every day up there. We'll
Yeah.
definitely need a gator up there every day. That's our only means of access right now.
but we'll have one gator that can be moved around anywhere, and one gator that has to just be there.
Okay, so we can, if it stays there, then we can use the funds from the $1 million for the one gator.
Okay.
And then the other one could be on budget item. So if we do that, how is that allocated, Christine, on this budget if the money's coming out from another source?
That's why we marked those items that we were looking to pay for with that money as request for Greystone.
Okay,
Yeah.
you only have to put a parentheses there. And mark
I'm
that.
just marking it that way on here.
Okay.
Because it's, like we kind of discussed before, it's gonna be a temporary thing, right?
And it's gonna
We're
go
not gonna
away.
have that money next time we go to replace that equipment, so it's gonna be the township's responsibility to replace, you know, in future years, so it really should be on here. So
Okay.
right now, we're just marking it with that notation for Greystone, signify that it would come from that money, but the future replacements are gonna be the responsibility of the township.
Okay, so we'll leave one earmarked for Greystone, one gator at this
Okay.
point. Does that work for you?
That's fine.
Okay.
And we'll obviously see, I mean, I think this is like an ongoing sort of issue. We're gonna see how that goes and revisit it. If we need more, you know, gators or whatever in the
Right.
future, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
So but basically, we can't order that until we get dedication to the park and get the $1 million approximate bond for park improvement, correct?
I would believe so, yes.
Now, that also would apply to item number 94, which is 72-inch bucket attachment, as well as, how about 95? Item 95, the security cameras for Greystone, would that also come out of that fund as well?
I wouldn't recommend, or that could potentially, that wasn't like security cameras weren't earmarked in the bond financing, but there's $832,000 that's a park endowment.
Right.
If you're using it towards the park, my thought is you could use that money towards the park.
Which would be cameras.
Correct.
That would be part of it, yeah.
So we should probably here put another parentheses for the cameras.
The
Well, it says-
the only issue there would be if you want the cameras sort of installed in advance of, you
Yeah,
know, that's gonna be your.
In advance of dedication of the
Well, I
park?
just mean like in advance of really operating the park, I guess. I don't know.
My understanding is the transaction, it's
For the cameras, if you wait, you might, when we're talking about lack of infrastructure and stuff like that, that needs to be installed there to put cameras. I don't know if that's something that could be pushed off until we receive dedication and that money kind of thing. You know what I'm trying to
It's
say?
all timing.
Timeline-wise, yeah.
Kind of timing.
Timing-wise, I don't, that's definitely not a question for me, but, you could use the money for that, I just don't know necessity-wise, how much urgency is there.
Just a curiosity, it's just to explore our options. Is it possible that the township could pay for installing the cameras and then get reimbursed out of that fund at a later date?
that would be,
So that would be problematic?
I
Not sure about that.
don't know. I would say maybe not, but I would want to talk
Okay,
to Kristen
all right,
about that.
just explore the options, okay?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so we have our engineer here, we have our chief of police here. What is the urgency for the cameras that you anticipate? I mean, is it something that we need to have
Day
immediately
one.
right before?
Day one.
No.
Not to save that much money.
Right, so, but it is something that you think is going to be important to have
Especially if it's probably free of the parking lots.
in the parking lots? Is that what we're really thinking of having
Yeah,
them?
we're not doing the
Parking lots and
trails.
entrances to the park.
Because you can't put them on the trails anywhere,
No,
right?
you can't, there's no Wi-Fi.
It looks like it would just be cost prohibitive.
Yeah,
There's no infrastructure back there whatsoever.
right.
Is there any solar-powered cameras that could be utilized in these instances? Or we don't have
The
it?
problem is that the tree cover.
They recommend that.
It's so shady.
Yeah,
that
they
thing.
recommend
Solar panel would have to be 300 feet in the air.
Yeah.
So does,
You're talking about solar panels at the parking lots? or
It's a
in-
solar operator, solar tower.
on the camera.
In, for the ones at the parking lots? Mike, weren't they a lot more expensive?
More expensive, and it's like two larger panels, like two 2x4 panels to power one camera. So it's a little more of a monstrosity than I sort of look at it probably. So they don't have the parking lot.
so it's 75,000 for the cameras, and we're saying that we think we can use the endowment, out of the 800,000 once we receive it to install them. And there's no urgency in getting them up before we take dedication. Okay, so is the board then comfortable maybe earmarking the security cameras for the sake of the budget as Greystone
Yeah.
coming from
Yes.
those funds?
Coming from those funds. And since we're on that topic, I know we were in the meeting, budget meeting again, we talked about 93 and 94, which are the Toro mower and the 72-inch grapple bucket attachment for the John Deere tractor as just being dedicated to Greystone also. So that's another one where we can kind of take it out of the, where we can take it out of the budget, which is 78, I think, and 5,000, along with the other two we
Well,
just discussed.
we'll still be on the capital plan, and in the budget, you'll just see an additional transfer in.
Well, okay, so here's my question, because I know that we're talking about setting up an account just for this money. How does that play into what we have in front of us right now?
So essentially the way it would work is it'd be similar to the restricted parks funds or any other sort of like escrow fund that we have, where the funds would be allocated as expenditures in, say, the capital reserve fund, and then you would see on the revenue side a corresponding transfer from that account. So like if you look at the capital reserve fund, right now you'll see a transfer from restricted parks funds for like however much the amount is for that year. Let's say it's, you know, $500,000.
Usually covers whatever the parks capital is in that fund and whatever the parks improvements are
So it would work in a similar manner. Those transfers into the capital reserve fund are shown as revenue to offset the expenditures.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I guess what I'm saying is that it's a little bit, at least for me, and I don't want to speak for the board, it's a little cleaner for me to have like those accounts in front of me so that I see that it's coming from restricted parks and how much is in restricted parks and what's being allocated to restricted parks, and similar with this new account.
So I'm envisioning, we haven't gotten that far yet because obviously we don't have the money yet. I'm just envisioning that we'll be able to open a separate bank account under restricted parks for these funds. It would go in the treasurer's report every month.
So this would be like embedded in restricted parks.
That's what I'm envisioning.
Well, not
It has to
embedded.
be in a separate bank account, but I'm thinking maybe in the same fund, so that, you know, your restricted parks funds need to remain, both funds need to remain separate. They can't be commingled, but we have two separate bank accounts. It would just be kind of like for capital reserve where we have multiple bank accounts, general fund, we have multiple bank accounts. It would be something similar is what I'm.
So if we're making a purchase like the cameras or the mower or anything, does the money come from this account to what our
We
capital?
make one transfer a year at the end of the year, once all the purchases are made, and we only take what we spend. So in an instance where, you know, we had vehicle delays and we didn't get those vehicles
You
in
wouldn't
that
transfer
year,
that money
we
over.
don't transfer that money. We only transfer what was expended.
So could we have like a sub-account just for the Greystone so that we could see what's
Yeah, we
going?
will.
Okay.
We definitely.
Separate line items so we could see.
Yeah, I mean, on here, I can even mark them in a different color or something if that's helpful. I think they should all stay on the capital plan because they're going to be the township's responsibility to replace. So I think that it's important for the longer term.
Let's do a different color.
Yeah.
I can definitely do that. Anything that's,
Yeah.
you know, reserved for Greystone, I can mark it separately so that it stands out that way.
Yeah, because it's not coming out of our budget.
I just, you know, as we're projecting out 10 years, obviously some of these pieces of equipment are going to need to be replaced within those 10 years. So I don't want them to get lost in the shuffle of the bigger picture. In terms of restricted parks and paying for that, generally for the last however many years, anything that's on here in parks is coming from restricted parks.
So what's the balance of restricted parks?
I don't remember offhand. It's over $1 million right
Okay, so
now.
like that is what I would really like to see.
Yeah.
And like be able to have when I'm looking at this.
Yeah, that's fine. We can definitely, you know, sort of include that on there, but it is on the treasurer's report every month, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mrs. Ward, you had a question?
Question about that $1 million. It's my understanding, if I remember correctly, the 187,000 or whatever, that's probably in the finance documents that Chris is referring to, that equipment was to be purchased specifically for Greystone, but the other, the remaining balance was just to be spent within the Parks Department, but not specific to Greystone. So I'm not sure that.
That is not my reading of the financing documents at all.
No,
The financing documents make it clear that they mention mention the public open space and they make it abundantly clear, because Ms. Smith and Mr. Hellman and I just looked at this yesterday,
Yes.
that it is to be used for equipment and the ongoing maintenance of the park.
Oh.
That is, there is a sentence in the financing documents that says that.
And then also, I don't know if Parks Department, or maybe this is under Ken's department, what about signage, trail maps?
Ms. McClune and I had a discussion maybe 3 weeks ago about constructing trail marker signs, and she was working with Mr. Kolakowski to review the map and identify locations for where those could be put in. So our plan is to construct those over the winter.
But that's not a capital
That's not a capital item.
project to be on this capital list.
Yeah, and I recommend, just over on the Brandywine Trail, which I'm quite familiar with, they have that big parking lot that they just built a couple of years ago right off 322, and there's just a nice, I'll call it a kiosk, but it has some information, safety information, police department number, keeping, a reminder to keep horses and everything out of sight. I do kind of question security cameras at those locations. Cost has nothing to do with it. It's just a matter of, do we really need them or not? I've walked a lot of miles on trails throughout the county and out west, and there's reminders about, I don't know if these cameras are for smash and grab situations that you're trying to get, but I don't know. Security cameras.
Well, we have our chief here, Chief. I mean, why do you think security cameras are important?
That would be one of the primary reasons, yeah.
Smash and grabs?
Absolutely. You do it at gym parking lots, park parking lots, anywhere of opportunity where you're away from your car for a while.
Chief,
And certainly the presence of cameras with the children.
and Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but those have been beneficial in apprehending people, correct?
Very.
Madam Chair, to answer your question earlier, the balance in restricted parks is just over 1.4 million.
1.4 right now.
As of the end of August.
Okay, thank you. I hear your comments. Yes, we've had discussions about, what we want those signage, markers to look like and what's going to be valuable to have in the parking lots. We had also at one point, I think, discussed like bathrooms.
Yes.
And whether it was feasible to have, where we want them, how that would look. We talked about maybe having some in the parking lots as well. I don't know where we are sort of with that.
I believe the discussion regarding the bathrooms was about screening with porta potties because of the issues with potentially with utilities and infrastructure in those locations. But we can certainly continue that discussion.
I mean, I don't know if that would be something that would go in this for next year. I don't know how much that would cost either.
I truly believe that this is going to be an asset that we're going to have to, and Doreen and I have had this conversation, I truly believe that this is going to be an asset that we're going to have to acquire and learn with.
Are we gonna have trash cans throughout?
We've talked about placing trash cans
Or
at
benches or anything?
we haven't talked about benches, but we've talked about placing trash cans at the entrances and then looking at like strategic locations.
Because what's the plan for like litter removal? I know that there's already people throwing trash down there.
We'll patrol it every day like we do every other park.
Yeah.
So that's, really it all comes down to what your expectations are in there. So, we can put a trash can at each trailhead at the parking lots, we can put them down in there, we can put benches, we can do,
I think you're right. I think we need to kind of see what it's looking like. I think maybe at first put them in the parking lots, and then if there's a problem.
Right, that's
we'll
what
change
it was,
it.
my plan was, we'll start within the,
Yeah.
they already have, the homeowners association already has dog box.
Oh, throughout on the trails?
No,
Their
just
trails.
at the parking lot.
Okay.
So, we'll see how that goes,
Yeah.
and then if I have to remake those boxes now, so,
Right.
that could be a winter project, because of the 55+ community that's gonna be walking in there, I think a lot, benches, I think are gonna be strategic in there. So that's something, we could be ready in the spring with, separate benches already built over the winter.
Right.
But
The dog waste boxes were something we talked about, making sure we're actually inside the park, because there's definitely be a need for those.
Yeah, so, you know, we'll just have to see. I mean, there's also lots of areas where, you know, dogs can go to the bathroom, it's not
Bother anybody? Yeah.
I don't think so. Yeah, exactly, because it's just off in the woods or it's in the weeds.
I mean, you say that, yeah, hopefully they take the
Yeah,
bucket
we'll
of the
see what happens.
and off of the trail.
We have to see, right.
Well, that makes me think, I mean,
It's a little different than like the community park or
it's
something like
different,
that.
but it's different. Like, it is different, because it's like the trails aren't, you know, cement, and people aren't really, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Right, that's what I just, I mean, the 4 or 5 times that I've been in there, I haven't noticed anything crazy, you know, but they're not open to the public yet, even though people are going in there, but.
What are our expectations as a township of people's animals and their waste in a place like this? And maybe signage saying don't do it, or are people really just allowed to have their dogs go to the bathroom where they believe? I don't have the answer to that right now.
I don't either.
Yeah, so maybe something to think
I
about.
wouldn't want to see a restriction on not having dogs there.
Well, no, not having dogs, it's just, you know.
They should certainly pick up after their dog, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Just a question on the parks there, if we're moving off of Graceland. We have other big ticket items of 200 grand each for replacing the playground equipment, both at Hamlet Crest Park as well as the Concord Park. This is like 25-year-old equipment, I guess, something like that?
Playground equipment?
Yes.
And it's starting to just fall apart, basically?
It's starting to deteriorate, yes. I've already replaced the steps on both of them. I think we're the ones on South Concord. The plastic coating, and then underneath the steps get rusty, and that's when little kids are crawling up to get onto the equipment. The slides have broken. I replaced the slides, but and we're out of warranty now, so it's pretty costly.
So it's really a safety issue then?
Yeah, it's definitely a safety issue. And, you know, eventually you have to dig out because we have the wood carpet, you know, that deteriorates over years. So, you know, we just keep adding and adding, but eventually you have to go dig it all out and start all over again, you know, to get the proper fall heights and the absorption. So that's also involved in this too.
I would like to suggest that we hold that off until 2026, the 400,000 for that. And the reason being is because we're paying Tool right now to assess all of the parks and put together a plan for all of the parks, all 12 of them. And that is going to be incorporated, new equipment, different ideas we're getting from the public right now and the community, what they want to see in our parks. So not that we're not going to replace it, but I think maybe we should do it all together and look at the full
That was the
picture.
question that I had.
Yeah.
I
That would be my
was told
suggestion.
that Tool thing was just for new stuff, not stuff that we've already had.
Yeah, they're going to take a look at the full picture, like stormwater, you know, canopies, tree coverage, everything.
The kinds of
around the park.
playgrounds that we have, yeah, like the actual equipment that we're gonna be using and installing, but
And that-
do you actually feel that there's like an imminent danger to children?
No.
Okay.
I'm not, I mean, I've been keeping up with the maintenance on
Yeah.
it over the years, so
Okay.
they've reached their lifespan. So
Right.
Yeah.
It's time.
As long as there's no major, like,
No.
you know, thing that
Nothing,
any, a
you
child
know,
would
they're not
hurt.
falling down or anything.
Okay.
You
So
know,
I would
just
move that to
keep an eye on it.
26, the $400,000.
So you're going to move that into 2026?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, since we have this park plan underway. And we have the splash pad for community park and the family restrooms, so that was included in this
Yes.
as part of that.
That is part of the 2025 capital plan. I'll note for the board, I did ask Chris Peters of Carroll Engineering just to take a look at those numbers and see if they need to be updated. So he is working on that right now.
Okay.
And we're still waiting on our third grant application for those projects. And we have money from the state and the county so far to offset some of that cost.
Okay. Do you know when we're gonna hear back from that third grant?
I hope by the end of the year.
Yeah.
I know the Commonwealth Financing Authority had a meeting today, but since those applications were submitted back in May, I'll be very surprised if they rendered a decision at their meeting today. So hopefully, I believe they have a meeting in November next, so hopefully at that meeting, I'm hoping to hear by the end of the year.
That would be helpful.
That would be outstanding. So then I can give the money to Christine to put in the budget.
Exactly. Any other questions on the parks? move ahead to, what is this? Police. All right, so we have a few items here for police. We'll start with, so we talked about the virtual licensing, the software licensing, I mean, and so your share is about almost 17,000 for that. And then we have the police remote access watch guard virtual server, which is,
Body worn cameras and in-car cameras.
okay, body cams and in-car cameras. And we are looking at a Ford Interceptor, 2 Ford Interceptors for replacement, and a Ford Explorer.
I think the line 142 is actually an electric vehicle replacement. It's just, it's currently a Ford Explorer.
I'm sorry, which one?
Line 142, correct me if I'm wrong.
My line's changed.
Okay, so 142 here, I believe that's, it's just a Ford Explorer.
Yes, it's a
because
regular Ford Explorer right now.
That's just
It's
what the
15, yes.
vehicle is right now, but the elevated price is looking to replace that with an electric vehicle.
The 64,000 would be
Yeah.
electric?
Mhm.
And that includes the outfitting?
No, that's separate. That's separate under police, yeah. That's a separate line item.
Where's that?
It's not on the capital plan because they're not capital items and all of the equipment comes off when we sell those vehicles.
Okay.
So it's actually, if you look at the budget detail sheet, it's actually the line that's titled vehicle changeover equipment, because that doesn't go with vehicles, right?
And that's about 7K?
No, that's, that for our cars, I think next year we were budgeting
I
15.
think so, that sounds right to me.
15 per vehicle?
Yes.
It's allocated in the general fund in the regular police budget.
And I also believe that line 144 is going to be replaced with an electric vehicle also, right?
So the second one, we're going to see how the Mach-E
Yeah,
performs.
that's what
We
it's in
budgeted
there
for it
currently,
because it's
yeah.
a higher price, but we want to see how the Mach-E performs before we get it.
So 2 of the vehicles budgeted at the higher price are electric vehicles, and the other 2 are going to stay standard vehicles.
Yes.
When you say you want to wait to see how the Mach-E performs,
Because it hasn't performed yet, because it's still getting all the stuff for it.
okay, so you have not used it yet?
No,
That's
only for show.
Only for show. All right.
Question. So the column that says replace in kind, it always says replace in kind.
Mhm.
When we're not replacing in kind gas to electric vehicle, is that the intent of that column?
It's not really, it's really more of like the make of vehicle, so like as we sort of discussed, John is evaluating equivalent purchases, equivalent vehicles on the electric side, so it's still a kind. This would be, say, if you were going from a Ford Explorer to, like an F-350 to an F-550, something like that. If you were, purchasing a larger piece of equipment, but you were looking to stay at the same, relevant equipment.
Interesting. It's just hard for me to follow. There's a lot of dialogue going back about what would be or could be an EV.
Mhm.
I'm not following any of that. It's hard
So
to say
you can see the
yes.
budget though, right? You see these columns and you see the vehicles that we're discussing? Yeah. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about, some of these are just regular old Ford Explorers, right? That need to be replaced.
And there'll be another version of this that goes out before the final budget, once those decisions have
Right.
been made.
Okay.
So instead of replace in kind, we'll put electric vehicle in that column.
We can do that.
Yeah.
But the
Oh, okay.
interceptors, you're
Yeah,
talking.
that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be clear to me too then.
But the interceptors, we're not really considering,
We are not there for patrol.
they're for patrol.
Yeah, let's wait to see how that Mach-E works out.
And one last question, if you don't mind. As we throw in more and more electric vehicle chargers, are we putting electric vehicle chargers in the capital budget?
We still have, I think, for the police department, the capacity to charge 8 vehicles in the Ford.
And it's further down in the capital plan. When we get to that department, you will see the additional electric charging stations that are proposed.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can I ask again, is there a consideration for hybrid? Are those ruled out or?
So we did do hybrid Fords, but not plug-in versions, and they didn't perform. They were constantly getting fixed. So we steered away from that. In the future, I'm not against it. It's more of a board decision, I think. direction.
Well, I think it really comes down to exactly what you're saying. It's all about performance and cost
And maintenance.
And maintenance and,
Bottom line is they have to work for us.
yeah.
Well, I believe we sold a hybrid about 2 years ago, and when we had it, there were significant battery issues with it. Remember?
John would know.
We had a battery issue with a hybrid that we sold about 2 years ago, correct?
Yeah, so the issue that we have with the hybrids is sometimes with the lack of use, it would kill the vehicle's battery, the 12-volt battery of the vehicle. So then it would lose communication with the vehicle, and it would go on and on. So as soon as we were trying, like, they work like side by side. So the 12-volt battery has to be used to start the vehicle and make it ready to be moved by the electric power. Once that was dead, because of the non-use, it was making like maintenance nightmares to keep those charged.
Right. That's a shame. Yes, Dr. White.
When you're making a determination whether you want to get electric or gasoline or a hybrid car for police or other use for the township, do they try to look ahead and say, well, if we get this kind of car and then we can get rid of it, how much can we get for it when we sell it? So is there, if you're going to get the electric car and you need to sell it later to replace it, and then could that be a problem? The ability to sell it versus say another kind of car, a gasoline or hybrid?
I don't personally think that there's a detriment to like selling an electric vehicle. Like, I don't think that it would be difficult to get rid of or have somebody purchase. I think it holds its value, actually maybe even a little more.
Well, okay.
That's me speculating, don't hold me to that, but what I've seen on the market is that electric vehicles will hold value for quite a while. So, I mean, we've just started this, so we haven't gotten to that point yet, and I think actually the whole point is that we won't get there for a while.
Right, so maybe you can look at what other municipalities are doing that are doing this similar.
There aren't really any. That's why there aren't many doing what we're doing. And so we're going through this process. The whole point is that hopefully these electric vehicles won't need as much maintenance, and we'll be able to hold on to them for a lot longer.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of the thinking behind it. Yeah. Any other questions about the police department's budget?
Madam Chair, if there was one item in the Parks Department that we missed,
Yeah.
that I just want to make sure the board's aware of, it is line number 68. It is a Ford F-550 truck, four-wheel drive dump truck. So that is scheduled for replacement. That was actually shifted last year from 2024 to 2025, and I do not believe that this was a situation where the transfer was included. So this is going to be, this is not a carryover.
We just changed the replacement year.
Okay.
So it's about $140,000, and that's an F-550.
And so what's the story with the current F-550?
Are there any problems or issues with the current one, or is it due for replacement?
There's no real big issues. It's just pretty much due to be replaced, and it was due to be replaced last year. It was pushed another year, so that's why it's.
Yeah, I mean, so looking at next year, at what we're projecting, so next year, we're looking at maybe another dump truck, a four-wheel drive pickup. If we're shifting these, we're shifting a couple things next year. So does the board want to allocate the 140 for this year? Since we're moving a couple of the mowers over and we're moving the playground equipment. Just so that we don't have another 140 next year.
What year is that dump truck? Is it 2018?
16?
No, I'd hold off. And not get it till we actually need it, rather than spending the money now. You know we're saving some now. I'd like to save it and keep it that way for 2025.
How many of these trucks do we have?
I only have 2.
Okay.
Pickup trucks and 4 pickup trucks I have.
And what's the condition of the other one? If something were to happen to this one?
It would significantly hurt the plowing process. That we use this a lot for plowing, and it salts the roads as well. We only have 2 in the Parks Department.
So if one goes down,
Then
we're in
only have
trouble.
one.
And that's number 68, right?
Mhm.
Okay, I think you leave it there, 140
I agree.
for 2025.
Okay. So you want to keep it for
I
this-
want to keep it
for
this
2025?
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, all right, so we'll keep the truck
Okay.
for the 140,000. Thanks for pointing that out, Chris. I didn't realize I skipped it.
Well, no, thanks to Doreen for pointing it out. She texted me during.
Thanks, Doreen.
Doreen gets the credit for
She's
that.
not going to miss $140,000.
Well, I mean, the point's well taken. The board shifted $441,000
Yeah.
going forward, so you already, it's reduced fairly significantly.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so then if that's up for parks, we talked about the police.
Roads.
Let's go to roads. Starting with the forklift for $45,000. Who would like to speak to the forklift? Go ahead. Lauren.
The forklift, it's 15 years old, and I have to say it's probably one of the best things the township has ever purchased. It's very handy to use it at least every other day for deliveries and moving equipment around the garage. It's kind of beat up.
Okay, and would the plan be to sell this one and just get a new one, or keep this one?
Municipal will sell it on this.
Okay. How much do you think we would get for this?
John, we're talking, I think, anywhere like maybe 10 to 15, 10 to 12.
Okay. So I think that's fine. Is everyone okay with the forklift?
Yeah.
Yeah? And then we've got the backhoe loader Caterpillar for $230,000. So what can you tell me about the backhoe Caterpillar?
The backhoe was actually due to be replaced last year, and since I had the wheel loader in the budget, I was like, let's move the backhoe one more year now. So the backhoe is pretty beat up too, another piece of item that we use probably every day, and anytime in storms, that's probably the first piece of equipment out of the garage. Like trees, it'll pick up trees off the streets, push them to the side. It's pretty beat up too, you're welcome to see.
And it's 11 years old.
Yeah.
What's the life of these?
I mean, it's got a diesel motor, so it'll run.
Yeah.
Quite a few years. I did move a lot of things in the budget in 26, and I kind of kept these items as probably the most important.
Because these are the ones that you really think are necessary.
Yeah, and I consulted with John a lot about this too.
It looks like you're on a 10-year schedule for that backhoe loader. Next time you're looking to replace it is like in 2035. It's just time for it.
Okay, so then is the board comfortable with keeping the Caterpillar for the 2025 budget?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And then we'll take a look at these, the software for the fleet management, which is 11,000. Is that like a new software or a?
It is. Right now, John tracks everything hard copy. This would be a software management where he could track like he works on every vehicle we have. So right now, he just has a pile of papers on his desk. This would be a software program that he would be able to do cost analysis on. He actually brought it to my attention that it would be very helpful. So like when you look, say I wanted to back up, we could run data and say, this is how much it costs to do maintenance on it for 11 years.
Do you think it's necessary, John?
I do believe so, and it also, there's other parts to it. It would help with work requests, so how the work comes to me, it makes that easier. And then there's also the same software will do what's required for our CDL drivers for pre-trip inspections. So it's eliminating a lot of paper.
All right, that sounds good. brine pump for the AccuBrine system.
All right, so this is, we decided to move the AccuBrine system from 125,000 to 2030, only if we could purchase this pump. So this will be an additional pump. The pump we have now, we probably replaced, what, 2, 3, 4 times?
Oh, wow.
Because it gets a lot of use. So this will be an additional pump. It would be placed outside of the unit, John?
Yeah, so so the way the system runs now is it is all utilized by one pump. This is for the truck fill. This will be a whole new pump, so when you're attaching to the tanks, and it has a new tank as well, because we have issues with gauging how much it's been overflowed before. So we want that to stop as well. So it's going to take it out of the pump, so you'll be able to continuously make brine and fill trucks. So when the trucks are out brining the roads, they can come back and fill while you're still making the brine. Because right now on hand, we don't have enough brine. You have to continually make it to fill the needs of the township.
So instead of buying a whole new system, you're asking for the pump.
This would be a good idea. As you can tell, he makes all repairs on the line.
And a new tank, you said. It comes with like a new tank.
We've had issues with the one tank. So yeah, that 25,000 is a new tank and this separate pump.
Okay. Seems like a reasonable request. What does the board think?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes? Okay. How about the Whacker trench roller? What can you tell me about that?
So this is, we rent this usually 2, 3, 4 times a year. This year, since we've been doing the Fresh Meadows project, we've been renting it quite often. We probably spent $7,000 this year just in rental fees for this machine. We have 2 other projects on Eastwood Drive, James Drive. We also rented it, probably another $1,000. So we're probably up to $8,000, $9,000. I think we did a project with Mike where we had to rent it too. So I'm proposing that we just purchase one at $35,000. And I think we're going to be using a lot because we're doing much more in-house projects.
And what does it exactly do?
So this is an articulating compactor. It's remote control. It goes into the trench and it has steel drums, and it just compacts the sub base, so everything's nice and tight.
Okay, and you said you've already spent something like almost $10,000 so far this year, just for one, okay. Again, I think that's reasonable request, something that's a piece of equipment we're using a lot for important projects, so is the board comfortable?
Yes.
Yes.
You anticipate you'll be using this, going forward for a lot of street projects, right?
I think so. I think by the end of the year, we'll probably have $15,000 into it.
And just for planning purposes, and they are highlighted on here, the street sweeper and the vac truck. The street sweeper, we've got one, and an additional one would be $250,000.
At least.
At least. And so that you have listed for maybe 2026 purchase.
Correct.
So I guess we'll have that conversation closer.
How is this street sweeper, how much is it being utilized now?
Every day.
It is every day, isn't it?
Yep.
Do you have any idea on the tonnage of the debris that's been collected?
We're collecting anywhere from 150 to 175 tons per year, which is a lot more than I thought it would.
And that's a lot more than last year too. Last year wasn't it 20 or 120 tons last
A
year?
little bit more than last year, I believe.
Yeah.
The vac truck, there's no year and there's no price, so I'm assuming we.
So in speaking with Mark, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, we like the rental program that we have. It's working out very well. We've allocated $150,000 in the budget for the last 2 years towards the rental program, and it's been going effectively. We just kept it there in the event we decide to purchase one of our own. However, based on my conversations with Mark, I don't see the need, but we wanted to keep the equipment line there just in case.
For the
sewer department. We have one item here, which is for a portable trash pump. What can you tell me about that?
It's actually a 3-inch tow behind pump. It's on a trailer mounted pump.
Okay.
It's currently 18 years old. We use it for various locations within the plant to transfer fluids from one place to another. It's mostly needed for emergencies, out the collection system. So I just feel like it's close to 20 years old, it's time to be replaced.
What does the board think? 20-year-old piece of equipment, it's still operable, I mean, it's
It
still
is.
working?
They've taken good care of it, but.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
Good.
Can I just ask about the cost on that? Because I was trying to figure out what kind of equipment that was, and I couldn't really find it online, or
See
I
the picture?
thought that was portable pumps.
Show you a picture.
Okay.
And then we've got a Ford F-550 truck for $135,000, and what would this be used for?
Well, I've reconsidered that. I spoke with Chris this morning and John as well.
Okay.
For what we use that for, it's in good shape. It's a what's that? Service pod. Yeah, it's F-550. It's got a service pod. It's got tool compartments on it. It has a crane. We don't use it. It doesn't drive very far.
Mhm.
It's just really to transfer equipment and material from one place to another. It's in good shape. We weren't planning on replacing the crane with this one because they're just so darn expensive. So we feel like we can get at least another couple of years out of this as is.
Great.
So we're gonna push it to 27.
All right, sounds
And you
good.
go to what, 2027, you think?
Yeah. I mean, if something happens, we'll replace
Yeah.
next year, but.
Right. Oh, that's good. And then finally, the camera transporter for a truck number 310.
That's our sewer inspection truck. The current transporter and camera, we're having maintenance issues with, it's 7 years old. And we're also finding that after lining our 8-inch pipes, cured in place lining, the existing camera and transporter is having a hard time fitting through some of those pipes.
Just because of the size of it?
It's a larger, it's just enough. The smallest it can do is 8-inch right now. So if you take a little bit away with the cured in place lining,
Sure.
plus the pipes
It'll get
aren't
stuck.
perfect
Has it ever
round
gotten
anymore
stuck?
anyway, so it's even less than that. So we're finding in some areas it's not really fitting, and we do have some, not very much, we do have some 6-inch pipe in the township. So this new one will be able to fit through 6-inch pipes as well. We think it'd be a good purchase for us.
So it would be smaller than the one that we currently
It'll be
have?
smaller and lighter, yeah.
And would you sell this one? Or the one that you currently have?
I can try, yeah.
Is it something that people would, yeah, I mean,
I'll
would
put it
people?
on municipal and see what happens.
Okay.
Mike, if someone will spend $2,000 on a dance floor, get someone to buy this.
That's a great
Worth a
point.
shot.
Okay, so how, the board comfortable with the camera replacement?
Yeah, I just have a question. 253 and 256, is that a duplication?
Why do
No, the camera goes onto that truck, correct?
Because we originally had it in the budget when we had the meeting, and now it's taken off.
Yeah, that was a confusion.
Okay.
It's a separate piece of equipment for that truck, right?
And we don't need that until 2031, that piece of equipment for that truck? Because originally we had it in the 2025 budget.
No, the
The
truck is
truck itself.
replaced, the truck is to be replaced in 2031.
Yeah, I think that's the actual
Yeah.
truck
It's
that
the
it gets
truck,
mounted.
and we're talking about the camera that goes on it.
Okay. Because that was originally on the budget, the truck.
Oh, no, it's not on this project.
I was just wondering, okay.
I don't think, it must have been, it wasn't on there.
Yeah, I had originally thought that I had the lines combined and they really should have been separate.
Okay.
When we had the initial meeting,
Right.
the first draft.
Right,
So I
okay.
fixed it for this draft.
Okay, that's fine. I'm good with it.
Okay, perfect. And then finally,
Facilities.
we have facilities, yep. And there's 2 items here that would be new, so one would be an EV charger at the admin building. Would they both be at the administration building?
Yeah.
It's the 2 new chargers.
So when we did the EV project earlier this year and completed that, we stubbed out 2 charging locations in the back of the building on the administrative parking area. So these would be the chargers that would go in those areas that were stubbed out. So
Because
all the
we-
wiring is already run.
Exactly, so we ran all the wiring when we did that
All
huge.
the pre-work is done, and all we have to do is make a connection with the stations.
Yeah.
Did they run the wiring or just put a pull string in?
I think it's just pull stringing out to
Yeah, I
figure
think
out,
it's just
because I
pull
think we're all
string.
gonna do level 2s,
I
yeah.
had no
so-
idea what the amperage would be. so-
Well, it should be 2 40 amp breakers, 40 amps on each dual port or whatever, so we should be good for now. Level 3, we'd have to change them up a little bit, wiring wise.
So it's gonna be 2 level 2 chargers.
2 level 2s, yeah.
And are we planning to stick with ChargePoint?
For right now, yeah, that's when we have luck with them, so.
I believe it's through CoStars, correct?
We're having good experience with them.
Yeah, we haven't had any,
We haven't had
besides
major
we have a
issues.
replacement head that's covered under warranty, that's the only chip had, which is one of them, so.
Okay.
Other than that, nothing, no issues.
They responded to that very quickly.
They saw, yeah.
I have a question regarding, originally we had the streets building solar panels on there. We took them off. Why is that?
I didn't take it off, I just moved it up, because it was I usually try to keep the new items at the bottom, just to keep it sort of organized for everybody. So now that that was already budgeted and that project will be completed, whether it is, partially carried over into 2025, that's a different story. But I actually just moved it up into the rest of where it
It's-
belongs with the
Yeah, where is that?
structures and
It's
equipment.
line 271.
And it's highlighted in
Oh,
orange.
okay, I got you.
Because it's a 2024 project that hasn't been completed yet.
And I've given Christine the balance of what we've paid out to Keystone so far, and what we paid out to
Carousel.
Carousel, which is one payment. So
Yeah.
she has the numbers to put into the expense.
So it'll
side
be a
of that reserve fund.
carryover, or it's not going to be, a new.
New
budget
light,
item.
okay. Okay, that's good. I'm good.
So the 11 grand, just to go over again, that's going to include the installation, the wiring, the hookup, and the testing and all that for the charger?
That's just the charging stations and the warranties that come along with them. The electric work is separate.
So the electrical installation not included in that 11 grand?
It's just a quick hookup, like I said, the wire's already there, it's just a matter of mounting the station, making the connections, and then figuring it on the wizard to get it on our network here. So I don't expect too much electrical work or whatever, just tying it in and making the connection to the charger, that's all, and bolting it down. Nothing major.
Would that be listed in this anyway, since it's like a service or additional?
It sort of depends. You could make the argument either way. It could be a repairs and maintenance item because you already have the infrastructure there. You're just,
Right.
You're purchasing the charger itself.
To go in, yeah.
Yeah, but you already have your connections and stuff there, so, it's fine.
Is it like a few $100s? Is it a few $1,000s?
Whatever, like I said, I have to have them come out and just see what it
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
Depending where we're gonna put the stations and stuff else back there.
Okay.
Mike, we may want to look at the sound system. I jinxed this earlier.
Yes, you did.
Mr. Golden, you had a question?
Yeah, I'd like to recommend that we start looking at others other than ChargePoint. They're going down to tubes according to their economic data. They went from 49 down to $2 a stock, now it's $1.35. They're going to report their third quarter earnings in November. It's not going to look good. So just get started looking at alternatives or have the contractor recommend alternatives.
Happy to look at alternatives always. Definitely.
We can check if there are other options on CoStars.
That's fine. Yes, Mr. Tom.
Yeah, we're on this, could the board look at possibly replacing the sign out front that has the manual letters on it to an LED sign?
I was just thinking the same thing the other day.
You can then coordinate that with the sign you have parked, and it'll give a much better image for the township out there.
How much
We looked at that, it's kind of tough where the sign location is. It's, you can't really read it coming down Haley Pike. There's no really line of sight. I think we've looked at this before.
What do you mean you can't read it?
You can, like the line of sight with all the signs in the way coming with the PennDOT signs, you can. There's
Oh,
not a
like
clear
there are
vision
signs.
to the line of sight, like I said, behind the signal box and everything, you can't see it coming down Haley Pike. So that's why we opted to do the community park. It's at the corner of the intersection. It's easy to read. You're not flying by it. It's just, it seems more of a hazard with it going by with the neighbors outside too or whatever. So I think that's why we just opted to keep the standard sign out there. And we just refurbed it too, so.
Yeah, we just purchased that like 2 years ago.
Well, we have the West Coast sign, and we have the informational sign, that's just the letters in that we just refurbed this year or whatever, so new LED lights, new backing, new graphics, and things like that, so.
Okay, just don't.
No, I mean, it's a good point. I guess my question is do you think the sign at Community Park is reaching enough people with information?
So, plus the website and everything else that we sell, and social media.
Because, I mean, we could also probably look at, if we wanted to do like a digital sign of moving it somewhere else on the property, right? Like,
There's really nowhere to put it, we've looked, so. I mean, we can always revisit it if that's what you guys want, but yeah, there's just really no, with the right of ways and things like that, there's really no good way to put it out there.
yeah, it's a shame. I agree. It would
Yeah,
be
well, we
nice.
tried for a couple of years to get it out there, but,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, well, it's not no, we'll look at it some more,
Well,
maybe
like I
there's
said,
a,
it's just a matter of, there's no really good spot to put it out there. There's
Yeah.
nowhere, cars are flying by 40, 50 miles an hour through, you're gonna have to cheap, I mean, there's multiple accidents out here at the intersection. So, I mean, it's just, I just think it's a hazard, putting it out there.
maybe we can come up with something creative. Yes.
Doesn't East Goshen have their information sign not on their
Right.
own property? They just have it in a good spot?
I don't know if it's their property.
Oh.
It must be their property. That's why that's
Across
the
from
big.
Sunoco?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
I was just wondering if, people usually have to slow down as you get towards the shopping center,
Right.
like by the park and ride or something like that, and it might be considered, or,
That's a good
before the-
suggestion.
Before the,
Yeah.
the shopping center.
Doesn't
I don't know
have
how
to
we would get,
That's on our property.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be,
Yeah.
no, it's a good
township.
idea.
I think it's a good idea. If we have other property that we could put it on, it's on the main road of Paley Pike.
Or if the shopping center were
Yeah.
to give us some sort of an easement. We're not gonna go down that road tonight.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
We can look into locations.
Yeah,
Put it
that'd be
back.
great. Yeah, we'll look into it. All right. Any other questions on tonight's discussion for the budget for next year?
I just want to mention, I'm with Steve on that suggestion too. I think that sign is so nice at the park,
It
but
is nice.
it would be nice to put
We're-
something on a.
Are there any are there any complaints about the light? That gets turned off.
So there's dimming options where you can turn it down at nighttime.
Yeah.
So it's
None
not
of the neighbors have had an
obstruction
issue
to
with that, right?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
I don't believe so.
It gets turned completely off at 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
So we power it down at 7, so it's not as bright.
Dimmer than.
And then 10 o'clock, it's off completely.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
So same concept if we have one out front, same kind of thing, just dial in from computer web, so.
Right. Okay. Something to consider.
I asked, remember this, who does the upgrades on the sign? Who puts a signage on it? Oh.
He knows first name.
I do it.
As well as change the manual letters at the other one, so.
It takes less time, you can do it more frequently. I mean, there's a-
And that area on Paley Pike and, I think it's Boot Road, that is owned by East Goshen Township. That little triangle where their sign is, they do own that.
Well, we own that little triangle over there, don't we?
Wait a second. No, that might be in the PennDOT right away. The one outside Paley Pike Park.
We wouldn't be able to, yeah, we wouldn't be able to put something in a PennDOT right
The
away.
park side, you own
Yeah,
the
the
other
park
side.
side you could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Park side, you own the other side. This side you don't. That side you do. This side you don't.
Oh. Okay.
Well, we'll look at it,
For
let's put
another
it that
day.
way. We'll look at different locations where we can put it at, that we own the property.
Definitely. Okay. All right, then we're gonna move on to, we don't need to make any kind of motion, do we?
This
Oh, I
will-
guess we do.
No, this will be included as part of the budget that'll go through the process
Okay.
later on this year. But just to kind of review some of the changes, so we're going to move the fire marshal vehicle into 2025, like we discussed earlier. We're going to push 2 mowers, lines 51 and 46, to 2026, as well as move the park equipment to 2026, and then adjust for anything that's going to be replaced with an EV, outline those accordingly in our vehicle replacements. So it looks like we're moving $441,000 to 2026, as well as moving, looks like line item 251, which was the truck that Mike talked about earlier, moving that $135,000 in wastewater over to 2027. And then moving the fire marshal vehicle into 2025, but that was a carryover and we already had the money
Yeah,
allocated.
so you're not gonna see that, as an additional line on here, because it's already budgeted.
All right.
Sounds
So
good.
I believe those are all the changes.
That's all I have.
You got it, yep. Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you, Christine,
Anytime.
as always.
Yes, thank you.
Quick question.
Yes.
What comes next? What's the next step of the budget?
So,
So the next step is we are preparing, all the department heads have turned in their budget materials. Christine and I have set up to do individual department head meetings with them. And then we will have a discussion with the board at the time of the preliminary budget presentation, which I think is generally the first or second meeting in November. Second meeting in November as we go through that process. And then we also generally have the emergency service providers come here and discuss those items.
I'm just wondering if there is consideration to change the timeline a little bit, because the public just gets to see the budget in its entirety in the middle of November, and then it's kind of approved for advertisement and passed 1 month later. So,
well, we have
an opportunity to do like preliminary, the first meeting in November for open discussion, and then maybe some changes would be made before the actual, what you're presenting in November, in the middle of November is basically the final draft, if you will. I know you say you advertise it for 30 days.
are there any logistical reasons why the second meeting in November is usually ideal?
We're usually waiting on numbers,
Mhm.
and it's also a lot of information that we're pulling together across all the funds. It's quite literally hundreds of accounts that we're compiling together from multiple departments. It's generally a time crunch for the preliminary budget as it is to get all those documentations, prepared. We've had times in the past where, we just sort of answered questions along the way about specific items.
Exactly.
And things like that. But, as a whole picture, we don't have some of those blanks filled in until quite literally the last minute. And I know the last several years, we've made a number of adjustments from preliminary to final. Once we've, done the whole presentation where we put that new presentation together the last few years where we're going, fund by fund, department by department. We've made, a number of changes between the two drafts. So,
Well, as it is
the
right-
draft and the final.
Well, as it is right now, the public has 30 days to review it, so that's, to me, ample time based on what.
That's to review it, not necessarily have input in, I think it's time for a radical change in the real estate millage rate. It looks like we're gonna finish the end of the year with a surplus of $4 million. Basically, we generate $4 million in property taxes. So, in essence, the way I look at it is, we could have had 0 millage property tax. And I'd like the board to consider even reducing the property tax by 50% to 1 mil. I mean, it's possible, and those are things that I think we need to discuss with the public, and it's too late if you've already decided to come.
It's never too late, Margie. So we're always here to answer the questions from the public and to hear what the public's concerns are. That's just true. My phone is on every day. You can reach our manager, you can reach any of us to ask questions, provide your input, come to any public meeting and make a public comment on the budget or any concerns you might have at any single meeting. I think what Ms. Smith said is right. The public has 30 days. And I believe that a month is enough time for somebody to give their input, ask questions that they need answered, and for us to be able to respond and consider those requests. I mean, we're not sitting up here and arbitrarily making decisions. We are here to engage with the public that wants to engage. So, I mean.
Okay, how about the meetings that 2 supervisors meet with staff, just have them here in the public room and have them open to the public?
That those are preliminary meetings that I wasn't even at,
they're not decision making.
Yeah, right, there's no vote being taken, it's.
Ms. Smith and Mr. Walsh had absolutely no authority to make unilateral decisions, and they did.
Just suggestions.
And everything that was
And
discussed
questions.
was brought to this meeting tonight.
Right, which you have the same opportunity to do. You can review things, come up with suggestions, and bring them to a public meeting like tonight and share them, which I know you have. So we're going to move on. Yes, Mr. Gold.
Well, one other question. What gets published, and correct me if I'm wrong, what gets published at the end of the year for the 30-day review is not the whole report. I think what I saw last year was what's missing is all the summary pages, whether they're 8, 10, or 13 pages in the front. That has all the information that the public needs. That's not published for review for those 30 days. What's published, I think, that's reviewed by the public is just the roll-ups. There's really no even details under each one of those budget numbers. They don't see anything but the simple roll-ups, and I don't know, I would not be able to evaluate without the first summary, which is really all I need, just to see roll-ups and then no details behind it. I don't know what you would expect comment from the public.
Well, that's why we have our public meetings, because Christine at those meetings goes through the summary very in extreme detail. And we have our opportunity at that meeting to ask her questions, as do you.
Right, well, I think that's why the budget watchdogs are here. Now, the most important part of the publish to the community is that summary. I think it might even say something like, well, the summary is being written while you're reviewing this for 30 days. But all the information the public needs is that first 13 pages of summary.
I have no problem providing the summary to you, but I'm telling you, we don't have people knocking down our doors to get the summary. So, sure, I think if it's legal, let's put the summary online, and you can have access to it and read at your pleasure.
Can you send me a copy of what pages you're referring to?
It's like 1 through 8, and since Chris has been on board, it's an unbelievable summary, and he does a fantastic job.
That's the budget message.
I do not write that until it's like the last item that gets done, because I can't publish any of that information, and we can't publish any of that information until Christine has made all of the appropriate changes. So to publish that information preliminarily would frankly be irresponsible.
Understood. I totally understand that. But that has all the information that the public needs to see.
And the public,
and that comes out after their 30 days of opportunity.
But we cannot publish that
And
until
really
we
all
have
that
the
information is
information.
comprised from the budget document itself.
Correct.
Right?
But Christine puts together, as the chair noted, Christine puts together an incredibly detailed highlight and presentation, which essentially includes all the information that goes into those summary documents. That I'm looking right now at an entire PowerPoint presentation that she puts together. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 slides.
Okay. None of them, I don't think, includes the tables we looked at today.
It's all spelled out in words. I do not agree with your assessment.
Right, so my point, I'm sorry to belabor this, my point is the most important thing is if I were sitting at my home and I wanted to see the budget is Chris's great summary, which tells me everything from the prior years to this year to what's expected, and this table. I don't get anything out of it.
so are we able to provide that after the time?
It's published with the final budget that's on the website.
But it's after the comment period.
Mr. Golden, I don't disagree with you that it's helpful. I cannot write it until Christine presents the final document to me, and I cannot do that with the preliminary budget. I am telling you that now, because she is still compiling information, and I have way too much respect for the work that Christine does and the work that all of our department heads do to rush them through it. It would be disrespectful.
I understand it, but again, what's published for the 30-day reviews is nowhere near the information the public needs.
Do you have access to a computer, Mr. Golan?
Yeah, sure.
Do you have email?
Yeah, sure.
Christine, do you have an email account?
Yeah.
If Mr. Golden were to email you some questions, detailed questions about the budget, are you available to answer those questions?
We always do. We always do.
That satisfy you, Mr. Golden?
It's not me. I get all the information I need. But when I looked at the document that the township published for the 30 days to everybody's review, it has so little information in there that someone could discern how to even look at it or comment on it.
And I think we just provided you with an explanation as to why that is. But we also have many public meetings leading up to that where the people that you're speaking of on behalf of apparently have the ability to also come here and ask those questions. And they have the ability to email Christine and ask those questions.
And again, there are other places on the website where if you don't see that information, where you can find it. Every single month of her treasurer's reports and every bill that goes out published on our website. Christine's 14-slide PowerPoint presentation that she works on for, I'm going to say about 2 weeks she works on it, is all in there and it's all detailed. I'm looking at one page here that has about a dozen bullet points on it. And I think that provides as much detail as you would need to make a valiant effort at assessing everything. So I do not agree with your assessment that it's bare bones. I believe there is adequate information that can be provided and is provided.
We're going to end the discussion on that here.
Is there a different format that the budget can be put in? I know this, I think we've used the same format for the last 20, 25 years. Isn't there an updated software that gives just a different presentation?
The format that we utilize is through the DCD chart of accounts.
Okay. Moving on to item number 7, which is the possible approval, discussion and possible approval of a proposal for flooring installation in the West Goshen Township administrative offices. Mr. Bayshore, would you like to address this? Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Christine.
Yes, Madam Chair, let me just get to that in a second. Actually, Mr. Kakabo is here to answer any questions that the board may have. So before the board this evening is a proposal from Boyle's Floor and Window Designs to recarpet 6 offices and the public access stairwell in the township's administrative offices. That's the front stairwell outside of the lobby by the elevator. The total cost is $9,071.07. The flooring currently installed in these locations is original to the building, and some of it has experienced water damage in recent years. In reviewing the 2024 budget, there are adequate funds available in the building repairs and maintenance line item for this project. As this expense was not outlined in the 2024 budget, approval from the board would be required. And we have provided a copy of the proposal that was received from Boyle's.
Okay, so this would be done this year?
Yes.
Pretty soon.
And this is something that Mike's been working on and looking to have accomplished, and I think it's well timed to do it. And we'd be replacing it with carpet tile. So right now, if you have a situation where like we have flood damage in one of the offices, we'd have to rip out the whole thing. If we have damage, we can just replace one at a time.
Familiar with carpet tile, it's a good choice, logical choice.
So just to give us a date, so when was the building built?
1999.
I have a question. Why did we not consider something more permanent, like a hardwood or an engineered wood or something more durable versus a
It's a little loud in the
carpet?
office areas or whatever. It's a little louder in the office areas with the hardwood floors for the vinyl.
Or your
And it's more cost
vinyl?
effective gluing down. It's more expensive to put hardwood and vinyl in.
I just thought then we could put throw rugs on if it's a little bit.
You have like a tripping hazard probably. You have the chairs that roll over, so we just have the double threaded carpet mats that sit on top of the carpet so we can roll the chairs on, so no tripping hazards or anything like that. So yeah, I wouldn't suggest laminate in the office areas.
We do have that in the main hallway in the office area and in our
Kitchen areas.
plotter room, kitchen area, things like
Whatever we
that.
had like VCT floor in the old tile, like we're trying to cover up all the old VCT just starting to pop or whatever. So that's what we're utilizing the vinyl flooring at.
Carpet from 1999 should be replaced.
Yeah, like I said, we did the hallways and everything, just the office areas, and like I said, the stairwell coming up for the public meeting room here. It's just a little gross now.
Yeah, the carpet square is a lot easier to maintain. Like I said, if somebody spills something, you just remove one square piece of carpet and you're done.
So is there a motion then to
I'll make a
approve
motion.
the installation of the carpet? Okay, thank you very much. Is there any public comment or questions on this motion? Yes.
I just have a question. What made you choose Boyle's?
They're a local company, we've worked with them for years, they're also a CoStar's vendor.
I mean, do you think that that's a comparative like price if we were to go to other places anyway?
Yeah, for what the carpet tiles running?
Yeah. Okay.
Install and everything, yeah.
All right.
And that might come down to, because I have actually code base here that we could use, so we might take $1,000 off of that probably.
Okay.
I have base here that we can use. So.
That's awesome. Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 4-0. Moving on to item number 8, which is the discussion and possible awarding of a proposal for storm sewer lining in the Fresh Meadows development. Mr. Bayshore, did you want to introduce this?
Yes, Madam Chair. Just get to that. So for the board this evening are proposals for lining storm sewer pipe in the Fresh Meadows development. This was previously discussed at the April 18th, 2024 board meeting. During that meeting, a proposal was discussed to line a certain portion of Afton Way due to a conflict with a Pico gas line. Mark Bertolami, our street superintendent, in conjunction with our township engineer, Brian Kolakowski, and our consulting engineer, Chris Peterson, evaluated other areas for lining. This evaluation identified 1,826 linear feet of storm sewer pipe that would be a candidate. As noted during the discussion on April 18th, the anticipated lifespan of the lining is 50 years. In order to evaluate the cost, the township sought pricing from 3 vendors all through the CoStar's program. The vendors were as follows: Snyder Environmental Services, Mr. Rehab, and Insight Piping. We provided proposals from Snyder Environmental Services in the amount of $196,082. They did also include a price for heavy cleaning and robotic cutting as contingent items, and if needed, those would be billed on an hourly basis. And Mr. Rehab provided a price of $247,665. Insight Piping did not respond to our request for proposal despite numerous attempts from both Mark and Mr. Peterson. So we made the decision that they weren't going to respond, so we weren't going to continue to pursue them. And as with other components of this project, the cost for this work would be drawn from the American Rescue Fund in the 2024 budget.
So how much of those funds did we allocate for this project?
I want to say it was around 320 to 400.
Okay.
It was in that range. And Mark's been putting all the material costs for that project towards the American Rescue Fund.
Have we worked with Snyder Environmental before?
We have in 2022, they did a job for us.
And it was
They were great.
good.
They did Legion Drive, yep.
About 80 feet worth.
And this would use the same form, the same NOVA form that we used on Legion Drive.
Yep.
And I'll note for the board, there were changes to the indemnification and the jurisdiction language that were recommended by the solicitor, and in the hard copy that was printed out at the table, those changes have been incorporated into this proposal.
Okay, great.
I just had one question. Under exclusions and clarifications, number 3, the owner or general contractor should provide dumpsters for disposing. Who's going to do that?
Can you say that one more time?
Under exclusions and clarifications, under number 3, the dumpster, the owner or general contractor should provide dumpsters for disposing of excess NOVA form, pipe, and reels. Are we going to supply the dumpster?
When they did the work on Legion, they didn't have anything that they needed to dispose of, but we could supply the dumpster if needed.
Right, what would they be
And
throwing
that
away?
would be extra cost for us. I'm just curious as to what
I
they.
don't think too much, because they'll pull the liner through, and there'll be access on each side of the pipe, that end wall or a storm inlet. They'll cut it off, they let it cure in place, they'll actually saw it off. So that would be plastic, basically, PVC line.
And would it be a lot that we'd have to dispose of for that?
I don't think so. You think so, Brian?
You could probably just bring it back here.
Yeah, the project's close enough, like the development is just up 5 Points Road, that they could probably just bring it back to the township building.
Okay, because I was just looking at additional cost.
It's a standard clause in their language.
I know, but I'm going to make sure it's not additional cost. I want to make sure it's not high. added on to the cost.
They won't pull that much through. They'll just pull enough through, just to cut it, make sure they have enough. So I
Okay.
don't expect.
It's going to be excessive. And then the other thing under the exclusions were number 26, measurement errors. If there are measurement errors leading to a shortage of material, the cost to reorder the material would be the responsibility of the owner. Are we doing the measuring or are they?
I think we did the measuring, but I think,
No, they measured it. They got the set of plans. This is, what you're looking at is what they did for.
Well, then how could they not be responsible for something to measure?
It's a standard exclusion clause.
I get
If
that.
you would call them up and say, I need 100 feet of lining, they show up and you need 110 feet, it's on you that you didn't tell me enough. If they measure it, which
They are.
They have measured it because they've given the plan, the survey, full survey plan.
So it should be
section.
accurate.
Yes, it's part of their standard language.
I know standard language, but I'm not comfortable with standard language in the event there's an error, that's all.
Well, then the error in this case, it's for them because they measured the pipe off the survey.
So they'll be able to look at their
Well,
wrong.
that's not what it says. We should strike number 26
I
then.
don't feel comfortable striking that
You'd have to
language
get a whole new
without.
proposal sent back from them for it.
Well, we're striking the fact that we're not going to be responsible, they are, because they're measuring, so we're
I
taking.
understand, but we're striking their language, they have to agree to it.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. Absolutely agree. I'm just saying that we should go back to them and talk to them about that.
But I think Brian's point is they went out, they measured it, it was all surveyed. I don't think that would come into play.
Yeah, that would.
It will, it's in the contract.
No, I do not believe it would come into play because they were the ones who measured it. They went out and took the measurements.
Yeah, they were given this data. They were given the full survey.
Then we should take 26 out.
Again, I don't think it'll come into play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, whatever you guys want to do.
I don't want to go through, I would rather just move forward with this project. I really don't think that's going to come into play.
they're a very reputable company.
Yeah. Did we need any easements or these?
No, the areas you see highlighted in red on the map in front of you here from Carol, that's the areas we're looking to pull. So it's the main run down through the development here, because these are the areas that these two are crossing the pipeline. And then it makes sense to keep pulling because it's the same run and you get more value out of it because they can pull so much at a time. So we talked about it and they talked about, when we met with them about how if we set up, we can pull this much in a day. So you want to get, we figured out what the most economical is because they got mobilized once. If we pull one little piece, it's the same mobilization if we're pulling all these in a week, because this is about a week's worth of work.
Okay.
So the idea is they drive up on Monday from West Virginia, it's your mobilization cost. They may set up for one on Monday, if not, they can pull twice on Tuesday, twice on Wednesday, once on Thursday and leave. So they do 10-hour days.
Okay. Very
And
good.
that was the plan, and that's what we talked about, worked out. So they can do this. This would probably be one day. This will be one day, this will be one day. 3 days before.
All right.
Do you anticipate that there'll be any need for the heavy cleaning and ribbon cutting? Because you're talking about that being an extra, there would be, I guess, a change order.
No, we videotaped the project and it all looked good. There was 2 collapsed areas of pipe on Afton Way and we in-house fixed both areas. Yeah, good there. So, answer your question, I don't believe so.
Robotic cuttings, if you go down the pipe and cut something out, to be able to pull one through. We've already videotaped all the
That's something they've already been scoped, right? All these lines have been scoped already.
I mean, they could find some sharp edges that maybe they have to go through so they don't cut the liner. So it is a possibility, but there's no collapses as of the spring in those lines when we cameras.
And heavy cleaning, that wouldn't be necessary either?
That's part of
They do cleaning as part of their
That's part of the
installation.
process. That's
Just a
stage
matter of
one.
heaviness.
Stage one is cleaning the pipe.
That's part of their price though.
Heavy cleaning is if the pipe is full of sediment. they
Yeah,
have to get in
but we
there.
know that that's not the case, right?
Right.
Okay.
I think we've videoed this entire development, correct, Mark?
Yeah.
All right, so then is there a motion to award the proposal for the storm sewer lining in Fresh Meadows to Snyder Environmental Services
I'll make that motion.
Second.
for the cost of $196,082? All right, so we have a motion and a second. Yes.
Is this, I know Fresh Meadows has been going on for a while, is this complete?
No.
work in Fresh Meadows, or we still have more piping?
No, all these areas highlighted in blue are all the piping is, we're doing it piece by piece. This is just some areas we can get some long pipe runs done because we line with the big up streets.
And so what we've been doing is Mark's team has been going through and replacing everything that they can in kind. He identified some areas for lining. And there's also areas, I believe it was either at the September 3rd or the second meeting in August, the board approved the proposal from, Carroll Engineering to begin working on the easements because there are areas that we have to replace outside of the public right of way that we're going to need. I think there's 8 easements that we're going to need for property owners.
This is going to go on for another 2 months.
Yeah.
Will all of those come out of the American Rescue?
That's the plan.
Yeah, all of those, okay.
Well, the plan, it depends because the project, when it was envisioned for being subbed out, was split between the American Rescue Fund and actually the bulk of it was in the Capital Reserve Fund because there weren't enough funds available between this and the Government Services Center project for the American Rescue Fund. So if we reach that point where we spent all of our ARPA funds on this, then we would move to the allocation in the Capital Reserve Fund.
Okay.
There's almost 5,000 linear feet in that neighborhood. So this will take about 1,900 feet off. We've done about 600 feet in the house, and we're planning another 250-foot stretch starting Monday.
About halfway there.
Yeah, we've been publishing, Mark's been sending me great pictures of what we've been doing, and we've been publishing it in the newsletter. They've been doing an absolutely fantastic job in this project.
It's going to get challenging when we get out of the right of way, though, when we start going through yards, where it's going to be a challenge.
And the condition of some of the pipe that they're pulling out is insane.
Oh my gosh. All right. Any other questions on this motion? No. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 4-0. Moving on to item number 9, which is the discussion and possible ratification of electrical supply agreements for West Goshen Township's electricity accounts through the CoStar's Energy Procurement Program. Mr. Bayshore.
So, Madam Chair, before the board this evening is ratification of the electricity supply agreements for the township's electricity accounts with the CoStar's procurement program. The township began participating in this program for electricity supply needs in 2022. Provided the results from those bids. Remember, this is ratification because at the time of the bids, we have to award these because they're all priced in real time. So the facilities which were over 100,000 kWh, which are our larger accounts, were awarded at Atherosite Power and Light at a rate of 6.820 cents per kilowatt hour. The current rate on our last contract was 7.842 cents per kilowatt hour, and that would be for a 2-year term, so that would be a locked-in price. And then for facilities that are under 100,000 kWh, that would be awarded to WGL Energy at a rate of 7.790 cents per kilowatt hour, and the current rate on the expiring contract is 8.078 cents per kilowatt hour, and that was for 1 year. The account for building D was not marketed due to the solar energy array that's being constructed on the facility. So at the end of the current contract, which is the end of this year, that would revert back to PICO. Additionally, the streetlight accounts were not marketed, and that will be done with a procurement event scheduled through CoStar scheduled for October of this year. I provided information showing the cost savings and the price it notes a price to compare when looking at the cost savings, and the price to compare that PICO utilizes is 7.895 cents per kilowatt hour, but there is no price to compare for the larger accounts over 100,000 kWh because of how they are, because they do not receive a fixed price to compare from PICO. So I would say on this procurement bid we did, based on what was done in 2022, we did pretty good on this most recent result.
Just curious, these generators, who gave us the quotes, are they utilizing alternative energy generation? Do you have any idea?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Anybody have any questions for Chris? right, so do we need a motion?
Yes, we need a motion to ratify.
Okay. Is somebody willing to make a motion to ratify the electrical supply agreements for West Goshen Township electricity accounts through the CoStar's Energy Program?
I'll make the motion.
All right, I'll second it. Is there any public comment or questions? Yes, Mr. Paul.
Just a quick comment. I think I remember this correctly. I was asking Sean over 6 months ago if putting solar panels affects these agreements, and I think the answer was no, it does not affect these agreements, but in actuality, not being able to put building D on these agreements and having to go back to PICO for building D, you're going to be paying higher electric rates just to have solar panels on building D. And it was kind of the reason I was asking Sean that question over 6 months ago. How does putting solar panels on building D affect the bargain rates we could possibly get? I just wanted to repeat that question. Sean's not here.
Well, the answer to that question is, as we discussed previously, the meter for building D is a procurement level 2 meter. That gives us the ability to net meter. Also with the solar panels, we can sell back the excess power to PICO, and we would sell it back at that roughly 8 cents per kilowatt hour. So we can sell back any excess that's generated to the grid.
Okay.
And this was the plan that we discussed.
At the PICO rate.
At the PICO rate, yes, the PICO price to compare rate. That's correct. And
Sure.
so,
Makes sense.
and that's what was discussed in 2022 when we entered into this program.
Yeah, okay. It's good that you followed up, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, then, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 4-0. Moving on to item number 10, which is the discussion and possible approval of resolution number 25-2024, approving the 2025 minimum municipal obligations for the West Goshen Township pension plans.
So Madam Chair, before the board this evening is resolution 25-2024. This resolution would establish the 2025 financial requirements and minimum municipal obligations for the township's 3 pension plans. The total MMO across the township's pension plans for 2025 is $1,411,783, which is a 23% increase compared to 2024. The primary factor for the increase in the township's MMO for 2025 is due to the market losses that were realized in the 2023 Act 205 valuation report. However, this will be the only year that the township will utilize the 2023 valuation, as a new report will be generated in 2025. As the board's aware, we do receive state aid that covers a good percentage of the municipal obligation, which, based on what was received in 2023, would be approximately 51%. However, that's subject to change based on funding availability from the state.
All right, great. Thank you for that, Chris. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Chris, back on March the 5th, 2024, we passed resolutions 9, 10, and 11, which adopted a 5-year smoothing method to determine the value of assets in calculating our MMO. Was that the method used here to determine the MMO position?
That was for, I believe so, yes. Because I'm trying to remember correctly. I believe so, yes.
So, because I'm a little confused here, because it says the primary factor for the increase in the township's MMO for 2025 is due to the market losses that were realized in 2023, which would be utilizing the market valuation method, which we decided not to use with those resolutions we passed back in March. So I just want to be sure that we're using the smoothing method here to come up with this valuation amount.
Well, the smoothing method spread the losses out over years.
Over 5 years.
Yeah, it didn't eliminate them altogether.
Oh, no.
So they're still being
It
experienced.
just smooths out the sine wave. According to what, from back in March, the estimated 2025 MMO would have been $1,863,000, which is considerably more than what's being quoted here. I'm just questioning, are we using the smoothing method to come up with an MMO?
I believe so, yes. I'll double check with Jen Latzer. She works on these with our actuary. So I'll check on that with Jen.
That's a good question, though. Any other questions? somebody willing to make a motion then to approve resolution number 25-2024, approving the minimum municipal obligations for the West Goshen Township pension plans?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Continue to get that information.
Well, I'll get the information. It can't be contingent just because
Okay.
we need to approve these by the end of September.
Okay, understood.
I'll second.
No,
But I will follow up with the board and get that answer.
appreciate it. Any public comment? Yes, Ms. Ford.
Chris, I used to be able to go on the state website and look at audits of municipal pension plans. Is the township still required to submit pension information to the state for auditing purposes every 2 years?
We submit the information to the state, but when it gets uploaded, we have no control over.
Okay, so you get those back.
We do an Act 205 valuation report through our actuary every 2 years as we're required to do. So I believe that's what you're referring to. And those are all done, those are all submitted to the Auditor General's office.
Right. Yeah, they just, all right, so I could get that information.
You good?
Go to the Auditor General website, all the on
Yeah, I just don't think it was updated since like 2017.
it. Sometimes it takes some months or a year before they do the audit to be actually loaded up. Just not from experience. It takes
And I am interested in just, have you looked back over the police pension specifically just to see how the drop program has affected the costs? Does the board know how much we're paying out per retired person for pension?
I believe we do.
So
Yes.
We have those numbers.
But you have to remember something about the drop. The way the drop works is what their pension payment would have been for those 5 years are put into, well, I'll call them their own account. So those pension payments, those payments they would have been getting over that 5-year period, and it comes out as one lump sum. I agree with you, it looks like a big amount, but those payments would have been equal to what they would have gotten through the pension for that 5-year period. The only difference is there's a guaranteed interest rate of 0 to 4.5%. It can never go above 4.5%, and it can never go below 0. That's the only difference. So the drop in actuality isn't really as big of a cost hurdle as it's perceived to be.
Kevin, I'm right in the middle of the meeting. Can I call you back tomorrow?
One more question. And I'm sorry, it's not pertaining to this one, but there's legislation that's being proposed, I don't know if it's state by state or nationally, something about pensions and government offset because who pays into Social Security and who doesn't. Do our employees get full Social Security benefits and pension, or do they get the Social Security offset because they haven't paid?
All of our non-police employees pay into Social Security, so they're entitled to any benefit that they're entitled to under Social Security.
Right, what about the uniforms?
They don't contribute to Social Security, so they don't get Social Security.
Yep. See, those are things.
Oh, wait.
If you work somewhere else, you could get.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
But we don't pay anything.
Oh, see that?
Yes. No, that's correct. Yes, I misspoke. They don't waive their right to Social Security. If they work someplace else where they contributed, then they can benefit from that. Yes. Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
All right.
Does that answer your questions?
I think so, yes. So we, citizens, aren't contributing to Social Security for police officers.
The police do not contribute to Social Security for West Goshen Township, and as such, the township does not make an equivalent contribution to Social Security.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor of the approval of resolution number 25-2024, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 4-0. Item number 11 is a discussion regarding proposals for time and attendance software for West Goshen Township. Mr. Bayshore.
Yes, Madam Chair. So before the board this evening are proposals for time and attendance software. for the township. This had come up back at one of the meetings in August, but was tabled, so I could do some additional research. These funds were allocated in the 2024 budget for this project. Throughout the course of 2024, Township Administration has reviewed potential options, including demonstrations of the software capabilities. We received pricing from 3 different vendors, which are outlined on the memo that's before the board. One item that was evaluated was the ability to integrate with the Township's financial software if we chose to do that. The only one of these 3 vendors who can do that is Time Clock Plus. They have the capability to integrate with the Township's financial software. All the prices are below the bidding threshold. There was one other bidder through Tyler Technologies that was above the bidding threshold. They were so much more expensive that it's not even worth considering. And so as such, the township is not obligated to utilize the lowest cost. The second-class township code does not specify that in this type of situation, the lowest price must be selected, unlike in an advertised bid situation. We did demonstrations of one of these with Time Clock Plus with our department heads. I did demonstrations of the other 2 vendors. The whole goal of this project is to create a uniform manner in which time and attendance is recorded and reported. And based on the demonstrations and the information that's reviewed, my recommendation would be Time Clock Plus. I understand they're the most expensive of the 3. I do like the option to be able to integrate with our financial software in the future if we choose to do that. The other 2 were very explicit that they do not integrate with Munis.
So by being able to integrate with our financial systems, what does that afford us?
It would allow everything to be uniform. So like we could input information and then it just would repopulate it over from our financial software to our payroll software and vice versa.
So would that save a lot of time for administrative, tasks?
Yes.
It would be time saving.
Yep.
So basically, the software would allow to be able to generate a paycheck, or how many hours a person worked?
We currently do that now. I mean, we use Munis for payroll right now, but it's not integrated. It's all done through paper and then entered in manual.
Would this eliminate that?
That's the goal, yes.
Have you talked to any other places that use it that are happy with it?
I have not. I can do that. I'd be happy to do that.
I'm wondering, I'm curious to see if, any major municipalities are using it and have a good experience with it.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
And which departments are we talking about? We're talking streets, parks, admin, and sewer authority?
It would include everybody except our uniformed police officers.
And how many employees are we talking?
70.
With all this language here, it really didn't say what is the technology, the hardware technology. Is it face recognition, voice scanning?
Fingerprints.
So it's going to be fingerprints, okay. That's fine. All right. And I'm just curious, how did they come up with this return on investment calculation?
That I can't answer that
I
question.
mean, they're saying the payback period is 5.5 months. I mean, based upon what's that?
I do not know. I can't answer that question. I would assume it's based on time inputting things like soft dollars, but I can't answer that question.
It's very detailed.
Yeah, it was.
I appreciate you looking into all of these. I definitely trust your judgment when it comes to this, but I haven't looked through what they're providing, and I think the fact that it is going to integrate with our financial systems already is a great thing. I think it's going to save people time, and I think it's going to be accurate. So
I do want to be clear to the board, we wouldn't do that right off the bat, but it's good having that option available for us in the future.
What do you mean?
We want to kind of test it, see how it works, see how it goes, and then kind of look to integrate it possibly to integrate it in the future. So that wouldn't be immediate, but having that option available, because the one that I talked with, I believe it was Work Easy software, there would be an additional cost for them to try and work in a way to integrate with our software. We wanted to do that in the future. Here it's already incorporated into the cost, and I don't know what that additional cost would be.
All of the literature that's here with the time clock proposal, I imagine that's a boilerplate stuff and pretty much would give this to all potential clients. But is there any privacy concerns here? What kind of personal data is going to be collected when all these 70 employees buy this system?
As far as I'm aware, just whatever would be needed, whatever fingerprint or anything they would use to punch in and out.
But nothing beyond that?
Nothing else. aware of. There might also be some employee ID numbers as well.
But you feel comfortable with the privacy guarantees that they offer?
So this is something that you're looking for a decision on tonight, probably?
No, you don't have to. If you'd like me to go back and check references, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do whatever you would like me to do.
Why don't we do that? Yeah, why don't we check and see other efforts that you utilize? It looks like this is a global company, so there should be plenty of clients out there that are currently using it.
All right, I'll check references on TCP. I'm happy to do that. I didn't get any references, but happy to check some references. Now, they did warn me that there's the potential that this price may change based on their current contracts that they have with their suppliers. So I'll have to see how that works. But I can get some references from them.
All right, I appreciate it, thank you. All right, moving on to item number 12, which is the discussion and possible approval of an addition to the certified volunteer list for the Westchester Fire Department through West Goshen Township's Volunteer Service Tax Credit Program. So this is a consideration to add Andrew Rongus as a certified volunteer to receive the tax credit provided for in the township's Volunteer Service Tax Credit Program. He's a volunteer firefighter with Westchester Fire Department. And Chief Mark Scanlon reached out to Chris, providing documentation that Mr. Rongus submitted the necessary paperwork and that in a timely manner, and that Chief Scanlon failed to include him on the certified list submitted to the township.
Chief Scanlon came to my office and he readily admitted that he simply forgot.
Yeah.
He admitted that right to me, and he provided an email from Mr. Rongus that he was timely. The email is from January 14th, and Steve, correct me, they were due the 15th, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to include Mr. Longus.
And I will second that motion.
All right, great, thanks very much. Is there any public comment or questions on this motion? Yes, Ms.
Of course, ask that you check with legal that.
About the shares of ownership and sure.
I pulled, while we were talking earlier, I pulled the legislation, or the guidance from DCD. It mentions nothing about that.
So then we're probably not held to it at all. I mean, we don't need to enforce it, just, yes.
So I will make a note here that none of us do this for the money.
Was that?
None of us do this for the money.
Well, no,
It's just,
It's a way of saying thank you to our volunteers.
I mean, I've been doing it for a long time. It's kind of a little perk. I mean, I spend my gas money back and forth to the firehouse hundreds of times a year. And when you start to add up the cost, I've been doing it for 50 years. And it's also hard to motivate volunteers these days. It's a different generation. It's kind of just a little part of that.
Yeah, I understand that. You guys are great. I mean, this is not like anything personal. Like, what would we do without police and firemen? But, you know, some of these guys, you know, they're lawyers and they run for political office and it's like we're giving tax credits to partners.
Volunteer firefighters?
The volunteer,
Yes,
absolutely, we
That's what we're
are.
doing.
And so what if they're elected officials and have other jobs and
Right,
do
it's
this?
completely irrelevant.
Elected, yeah, relevant.
And
Elected
all-
officials do a lot too for free.
Ms. Smith, correct me if I'm wrong, but at our coalition meetings, they have said that this has been a valuable incentive for them.
Yes, we actually got increased in volume of volunteers to come to the community and help out. And it's probably one of the best things I've ever done in my life is to be a part of that.
I don't think we realize or appreciate how much we save in taxes from all the folks who volunteer for fire and EMS services that are provided to our township. This is just a tiny little sign of appreciation for them for putting themselves out there and giving us this.
And for recruitment, we were able to recruit great people.
It's a problem across the entire state of Pennsylvania of loss of volunteers. And this is one way that we put in place to try to retain volunteers.
And God
A little
forbid,
incentive.
and God forbid somebody get hurt, they get hurt 100%, not partial.
And the statistics, we just did this the last coalition meeting, the statistics for any emergency personnel has gone up 3 times that they've died or seriously injured during an emergency response, whether that's police, whether that's fire, whether that's EMS. We had a professional come and speak at our last coalition, so they're actually putting their lives on the line.
I understand.
So I think we should move on to the next topic.
Madam Chair, we have a motion and a second on the table.
Okay. Is there any other public comment?
Yeah, I would just really like to see the proposed budget numbers when they come out in November with a proposed 50% property tax increase for all the residents in the township.
Thank you
And
very
see
much
what
for your
that-
comment. Okay.
Thank you.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries 4-0.
I will notify Mr. Rogers tomorrow.
Thanks very much. Okay, moving on to item number 13, which is the reports for August 2024. We'll start with Chief Michael Carroll.
Thank you.
Hello, Chief.
Report from the police department for August of 2024, we responded to 2,149 calls for service. 50 of those were alarms and 2 of those alarms were valid. We responded to 55 accidents, 17 of which were reportable, and we drove a total of 17,862 miles. We performed extra traffic enforcement on West Warren Road, Snyder Avenue, and North Five Points Road, Owen Road, Rosary Lane, South Blue Street, Taylor's Mill Road, Grove Road, and Falcon Lane. We performed our normal monthly trainings, and in addition to that, Officer Meredith attended the Pennsylvania School Safety Institute. Officer Mango attended the Glock Armor training. Sergeant Gilbert attended NRA handgun instructor training. Officer Hoover attended Bulletproof Report Writing training. Detective Cuddy attended the Delaware Valley Technology training. And Detective Cuddy, Officer Grider, Officer Hero, and Officer May all attended Field Force training. In the, going back to the alarms, of the 50 alarms that we had, 5 were of the highest fine value, either the 6th or 7th violation, and 21 were the first violation for the people of the year. We performed assists, 25 assists to other departments, and received 18 assists from other departments. And our 25 assists to other departments totaled about 15 and a half hours. So that's the report from the police department. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Anybody have any questions for the chief?
Just a question on the alarm, Chief. Is it too early to come up with an assessment that our change in fee schedule is resulting in a change of behavior in these frequent flyers?
So I've looked at month to month, and they kind of hop up and down as far as higher or lower than last year. So yes, it's either, I think we can look at the big picture at the end of the year and just look at the year overall.
Second question I have, has there been any problem in getting the fines paid by some of these folks who are paying, owing $500 for another alarm?
So there's been a couple people that we had to convince that they should give us the money, but everyone has.
Everybody is paying?
Yes.
So we haven't had to take them to the district court at this point?
We've had to file some paperwork, but that resulted in payment.
Any other questions? No? Does anybody from the public have a question for the chief?
Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
All right, thanks very much, chief. Moving on to the Board of Supervisors announcements. I will start to my right. Mr. Knight, do you have any announcements?
Yeah, just a few announcements. On Thursday, the 22nd of August, I attended the West Goshen Police Traffic Committee meeting. On Monday, August the 26th, attended the Fire and EMS Coalition meeting with Tina Marie Smith. And we discussed the need, among other things, for to purchase a blocking vehicle for our EMS and fire fighters. And also in attendance were Senator Kmita and Representative Bielli discussing current legislation in Harrisburg. And on Thursday, September the 10th, attended the Planning Commission meeting, and Monday, September 16th, attended the meeting with GFAC, that's Good Fellowship Ambulance Company, to discuss the equipment needed for emergency response at the Greystone Park. And on Tuesday, September the 12th, attended the solar project update meeting. I'm sorry, yeah, 17th, I'm sorry. And I met with Chief Carroll and Tina Marie Smith for a monthly board liaison meeting. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hallman. Ms. Smith?
Yeah, 9/4, we had the capital budget meeting with all the department heads and Sean. 9/14, I actually attended a fundraiser for Up on the Deck Westchester Downtown Foundation, rooftop Chestnut Street Garage, where other elected officials were also in attendance. 9/16 with John on Good Fellowship. We tried to prepare for equipment and salaries and people and all for the Greystone. 9/17, we had the meeting with the chief of police. 9/19 will be the COG meeting, and October 17th will be our next coalition meeting. That's it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Woolman?
Yeah, just one, August 22nd, attended the West Goshen Township Historic Commission meeting.
How are things going in the Historic Commission?
They're going along pretty well.
All right, I don't really have any announcements tonight to share. I know that we have our township open house happening this Saturday.
Yes, Saturday from 1 to 3.
From 1 to 3, so if you can come out, great. I think we'll all be there. And that concludes my announcements. So we're going to move on to number 15, which is the township manager's announcements. Mr. Bayshore.
Yes, Madam Chair. The September edition of the Township's monthly e-newsletter will be issued at the end of this week. The Township building will be closed on Monday, October 14th in recognition of Columbus Day / Indigenous Peoples Day. However, there will be no adjustment to trash and recycling collection for that week. The administrative building hours implemented in the summer of 2024 will continue. Those are 7 a.m. to 5 Monday through Thursday and Friday by appointment. These adjustments have proven to be effective in establishing continuity among the departments, but we will still have a limited number of staff members here on Fridays, including myself, to handle any appointments or individuals who require immediate assistance. We've been pretty loose with the appointment requirement if people come and need to pay a bill or drop off plans or anything like that, and there have been no issues to date. We do have, in terms of our boards and committees, I'll let the board know, we did have one of our alternate members on the Planning Commission, Laura Chadwick, resign. So we do have a vacancy for an alternate member on the Planning Commission. So that individual appointed would complete a term that expires in January of 2027. There is also one vacancy on the Historic Commission, and the individual appointed to this vacancy would complete a term that expires in January of 2026. And then I will be sending notification in the coming weeks out to the individuals on our various volunteer boards and committees to determine if they're interested in continuing in anticipation of their organizational meeting in January. In terms of our budget preparation, as we discussed the capital plan this evening, and as noted, our finance director and I have meetings scheduled with all of our department heads to review their individual budgets, as we do every year. And then Ms. Riffey is also working on the revenue projections as we speak. In terms of the land acquisition at 315 Powell Lane, that settlement occurred on August 27th, 2024, and the payment was approved as part of the bills list at the September 3rd meeting. There were no issues with the settlement, and we're going to start maintaining that area. All the items that were authorized for sale on Municipal have all been claimed and all payments have been received. So far to date, we have sold just over $250,000 worth of surplus equipment through Municipal. In terms of our ordinances that we're working on, the board adopted the prohibition on polystyrene at the September 3rd meeting. That has been posted, that has been sent to general code for codification, and while it hasn't been codified in our code book yet, it is accessible up on our website. The Sustainability Advisory Committee is working on a flyer, and we're going to send out notices to the impacted businesses. However, since they're anticipated opening soon, I did contact the owner of the West Goshen Shopping Center so that he could alert Chick-fil-A and Target. So he was going to pass those, since we didn't have any contacts for them, he was going to pass those along to his contacts. The sidewalk amendment, the amendment for sidewalks in the subdivision and land development ordinance went before the Planning Commission at their meeting on September 10th, and it was recommended for approval. We're still awaiting comments from the County Planning Commission, but we hope to have those in time for the October 1st board meeting for the board to authorize advertisement of that proposed ordinance. Then the fence and wall requirements, we're hoping to also have those updated comments back from the County Planning Commission and present those to the board for authorized for advertisement at the October 1st meeting as well. Finally, the landscaping requirements. The representatives from the SAC met with the township solicitor to review the landscaping requirements in the working document that they have on September 10th, And the township solicitor is preparing a draft ordinance for the SAC to review, and that should be done at their meeting in October. Kristen was also going to provide some examples as well for consideration. I have some information on the Fresh Meadows project. The Streets Department is continuing with the repairs, and beginning this week, they're going to be replacing 250 feet of 36-inch pipe in that development. And we do have some pictures that Mark has provided that will be in the next e-newsletter that's done. Mr. Hellman mentioned the solar energy array project. We had our monthly status meeting today with Terrasol. We consulted with BBD Inc. on what would be required for the IRA reimbursement. They've provided a proposal to assist with those documents of $7,000 to $10,000, but I don't believe it's necessary since we included that in our bid with Terrasol. They also estimate our IRA reimbursement at $140,000 to $160,000 because we provided them with the information on the project costs. They've also provided us with all the forms and everything that we're going to need to do to submit that. The submission under the Inflation Reduction Act must be done by the 15th day of the 5th month of the close of the fiscal year. So for us would be May 15th. So if the system isn't online and working by May 15th of 2025, we wouldn't be eligible to submit that until 2026 because that's there's a cutoff period. Terrasol is bringing electrical subs out to the site because they're still working through trying to find someone that will correspond with our responsible contractors ordinance, and Mr. Hellman was in attendance today, and he did offer some suggestions for if they're having some issues with that. There was a trenching proposal that was previously discussed that's going to be brought before the board for final consideration at the October 1st meeting. I do have the solicitor reviewing that to see if that can even be considered because it wasn't part of the original bid that was put in there. But that's a policy determination for the board. In terms of our application to PICO, they are targeting submission the first week of October to submit our application to PICO, and they said it would be a 45 to 60 day review period, but we can't purchase any equipment for the project until we get the approval from PICO. So we'd probably be looking at equipment purchases the latter part of this year, assuming, or maybe even into 2025.
Are we expecting that it's going to be online by May?
I believe the target date was the end of May 2025.
Okay.
But I don't think we're going to meet that May 15th deadline for the IRA. And now I think, Mr. Allen, did I miss anything from our
I
meeting?
think that pretty much covered it. I mean, he did report on, when he found out at that September 10th conference out of Anaheim, California, and still the Made in America panels are not going to be available until maybe the third quarter of 2025. That's from what he was saying. So we're kind of stuck with going with the, if we want to have this thing done by sometime middle of next year, we're stuck with going with the Assembled in America product, unfortunately.
In terms of upcoming meetings, we have our next meeting on the zoning ordinance update on October 10th with the Land Planning Committee at 6 p.m. And our next meeting for the Park Recreation and Open Space Committee Steering Committee will be tomorrow at 5 p.m.
I'm sorry, which day was the land planning?
October 10th.
October 10th.
October 10th at 6.
Yeah, okay.
And then lastly, in terms of the North Hill project, we have the easement documents have been drawn up. The easement documents have been drawn up for the easement documents for the North Hill project have been drawn up. The final documents are being prepared by the solicitor's office. Brian reviewed all the legal descriptions and everything from Carroll Engineering. They've addressed all his comments, and those are all being finalized. So our plan is to have those signed by the property owners and then have them brought to the board for final approval.
North Hill Civic Association is a property owner?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll reach out to you. I have questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Any anticipated startup or any anticipated timeline as far as putting out bids for that project?
I believe the end of this year with construction early next year. Is that correct, Brian?
We're targeting construction is going to potentially be slightly delayed next year because of the aqua water line location. Warline's gotta be lowered, Aqua's gonna do that, but right now, they're looking at February, March, so they can get on their schedule next year. Then we'll come in after it and do our project, because we're gonna cross it. They're gonna lower it for us. They can't do it until February, March. The, anticipating is bidding it this year with the award to have the project start following Aqua next year. But Aqua's gonna control when we can start it.
They're gonna do it in February or March? They typically, oh, okay.
And so that's basically everything I have.
All right, thank you very much. Township Engineer Stormwater
Just
announcements.
quick questions, anything on the Rosedale Avenue sidewalk grant application, what's the status on that?
No update at this time. The Commonwealth Financing Authority had a meeting today, but I don't know if there was anything that was announced today. I didn't receive any emails about anything, so we had heard through the grapevine that there was a possibility that those grants were going to be announced at their meeting today, but we haven't heard anything.
On the Friday closure, we're extending that beyond summer hours. Any complaints from any of the residents about the fact that the office is closed on Friday?
None that I've received. In fact, I got complimented about it on Friday.
Okay. By one of the residents or one of the employees?
By an individual who came here to pick up a permit.
Okay. All right, good enough. All right, thank you.
Township Engineers announcements. Mr. Polakowski.
I just have a few tonight. I'll start with Greystone. I do have the final punch list request back from Ray. He emailed me on Monday to say it's been completed. I will be going out probably, if not late this week, early next week to check that. And then I'll report back on that. Phase 6 construction is well underway. They were paving. I don't know if they finished all the paving, but they were paving. So that is very close. Phase 6 is recorded. So all the phases have now been recorded with the county. Some stormwater updates, the Basin Road project for the change of where we're going to do stream restoration. Carol Hunter is working on it. They should be able to get me a draft so we can know what the scope of the project will be by the October 15th meeting. I can report on that next month. They're working through the calculations and all that right now, but from the wetlands flagging, it is a viable project. So we can get some stream bank stabilization done there, I guess, with credit for MS4.
Awesome.
Speaking of MS4, MS4 reports, we have 2 due this month. The annual report, which is in its final stage, I have to QAQC it and submit it. And we have to do a 5-year report to explain what we did and did not accomplish in the last 5 years on our PRP. So that has to be done and submitted by this month as well. That's a new report that they just came out with this year. So that's new. We're one of the first municipalities to go through it because we've got 5 years in our first permit.
Wow.
And additionally, the PRP update, I will be requesting proposals from Carol and from HRG for updating PRP. So that can get started next year. And because we have to get more credit into our PRP than we currently have available, we're going to be short. And lastly, the Government Services Center Basin, I'm currently trying to coordinate a meeting with the county and their engineer to address the county engineer's comments. I emailed them last Wednesday, haven't not heard, I've got an email tomorrow, see if they can get some dates. We're trying to get this through so we can get this bid, and get the bid awarded this year. Still, we're ready to go to county and we're down to the county. So.
Just out of curiosity, what were some of the county's comments?
They didn't like the design. They want us to change the complete design of what we're doing. They thought it would be too hard to maintain the design, in their opinion, even though we're responsible for maintenance of it. They want more input. A lot of the questions they asked, we already have the answers to. The biggest issue is they don't think we should be making a water quality basin. They just want us to rehab and leave it, basically leave it oil. If we do that, we're not going to get any credit for it. We have to do a water quality basin, which is what Carol has proposed with the winding path through the basin to pool water and slow it down.
And is there the county engineer that's saying all these things?
AECOM. So it's a letter from the AECOM. So we're trying, I requested a meeting, they responded, I'll talk to the county, get back to you with the dates. That was last Wednesday. I haven't got a response. They're going to get a follow-up email tomorrow morning. So my calendar will follow up with them tomorrow morning to ask what's going on with the dates. We need to get a meeting so we can get this handled.
Have you or anyone from the township or Carol gone over there like during a big rainstorm just to see the water that flows through there? Because it's not much. I've gone over there when it's pouring just to visually see it during a downpour, and there's not a lot of water that goes through it.
The calculations and the PRP plan is based upon the drainage area drained to it.
But it's all modeling.
It's all modeling, it's all based on the drainage area. DEP has accepted the drainage area modeling going to it and accepted what the parameters will be. So based on that drainage area, we can get a substantial credit. We can walk away from the project and not get any credit. But because of the credit isn't based upon what you observe, the credit is based upon the drainage area and what is in the drainage area drained to it. Is how the PRP and how MS4 works.
It just seems counterproductive. There's a lot of money spent based on a modeling, but modeling doesn't match what's actually happening. So, it just makes us think.
Any other announcements, Brian?
That was all I had tonight. Do you have any questions for me?
Not at this time, but I'll probably reach out to you about the North Hills work, just because I have a couple questions on that.
Okay.
Reach out there. Zoning officers announcements, Mr. Bridgeworth.
Madam Chair, there's only a couple announcements from the zoning officer. The application for 20 Ellis Lane was heard back on July 22nd. The zoning hearing board issued their decision on September 4th and granted both variance requests. A copy of the decision has been provided to the board. And then on July 22nd, the zoning hearing board also heard the case for 800 East Virginia Avenue. This was to allow for further development of the property and variance relief from the requirements for the 100-foot side buffer yard contiguous to a residential zoning district or residential use. On September 4th, the zoning hearing board denied the variance request that was being sought, and again, a copy of that decision has been provided to the board. The zoning hearing board will next meet on September 23rd to hear the application that was presented this evening for 1201/1205 Ward Avenue. And there are no other pending applications before the zoning hearing board.
Okay. Great, thank you very much. And finally, number 18, we have the approval of the meeting minutes from August 20th, 2024. If you've had a chance to review the minutes, are there any corrections or questions on these minutes?
I'll review it, it looks fine, I'll make a motion to accept.
Second.
All right, thanks very much. Is there any question or comment from the public on the meeting minutes from August 20th? Okay, hearing none, then we'll take a vote. All in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 3-0. And finally, approval of the treasurer's report dated August 31st, 2024 for the general fund, the sewer revenue fund, the waste and recycling fund, and the capital reserve fund, and the bills to be paid from these funds. Do any board members have any questions or comments on any of these, any of the bills?
I have one question. Page 6, 002043, Borough of Phoenixville, small tools and equipment purchase.
Is that for us, Chris?
Yes.
Yes, so that's a mobile camera for a police car. We kept one additional car this year, so we needed a camera for it. So instead of getting a new camera system, which was about $6,500, we got one that the Borough of Phoenixville retired for $1,200.
Gotcha, thank you.
Question on the American Rescue Plan, we have 863,000 plus, still on a balance on that. Are we on a trajectory to have those monies obligated by the end of the year as a contract?
Well, you just obligated roughly $200,000 this evening for Fresh Meadows, and $500,000 of that in the budget is towards the Government Services Center project that Brian is working very diligently on to make sure that we can come under contract by the end of this year.
Okay. So that's 700,000. Is there any additional monies that, we don't want to leave anything on the table, obviously.
There's going to be a proposal for something coming before the board on October 1st that would address an item in the regional stormwater study that on Longview lining project that's going to be coming before the board in 2 weeks.
Okay, so
And
that should deplete that fund then?
That can utilize that as well.
Okay.
Plus, there's also whatever additional work Mark is doing, plus the cost that was approved for the work Carroll Engineering is doing for the easement stuff in Fresh Meadows.
Any other questions?
The big chunk, the big chunk of that is the Government Services Center project, which, again, Brian is working to get that done.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Brian. All right. Is there a motion to approve the bills?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the public on the bills? Yes, Ms.
I
White.
just have a comment and a couple questions. Just to note that page 2 of the treasurer's report, we are now above the budgeted revenue amount for transfer tax. So as of August 31st, we've already exceeded what was budgeted, so we'll stay strong. Earned income tax, we're already above, we're $350,000 roughly above where we were this time last year. And the earned income was actually budgeted to come in just maybe 100,000, I forget what the exact number was, less than last year. So we're having some really great results on taxes that have been collected. Wondering, is there somewhere that I'm missing, like year-to-date overall revenues versus expenses? Is that information anywhere?
I mean, you could, I don't have that information. I'm sure if you ask Christine, she might have that information. I don't have that information in my available right now.
Is that something that could be included on the monthly report?
I can, if that's what the board wants.
It's helpful to see. Again, it's something when I look at other municipalities, you're able to see every month, at the end of the month, year-to-date, all revenues, all expenses.
I have no objection to that. If you want to reach out to Christine and ask.
Great. And then, I think I asked about this before and I forgot. Staff car washes are $13.99 for a monthly wash and police are $22.99. Find the difference.
I would venture to guess that it's because of the equipment that are in the police vehicles.
We just have signed up for their, whatever their commercial monthly rate is at Pete's. Whatever that is, that's what we pay for our own. You guys.
Just curious why the staff vehicles are only $13.99 a month.
That was in place before my time. I can't answer that question. It's whatever the rate is.
It would just be great if the rate was the same, we could get $13.99 for these vehicles. It's just, and then.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys do to say that the same thing.
I don't know
Do you
either.
have unlimited
Yes.
washes in a month?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a different level wash, I don't know.
Yeah. They also have, again, it also may be a question for the equipment that are on the police vehicles.
Okay. And then a Polaris Ranger, what is that, Leroy's?
That was allocated in the budget.
What is
That was allocated in the budget in 2024 for the ATV for the Greystone Park. The chief went out and looked at it, and it was in the budget to purchase.
Oh, okay, just curious. So that's what that is. All right. And then digital, Dan and Lake's digital, so do they do the township's Facebook page?
Mhm.
Do they do Parks and Rec as well?
Yes.
And no, we do a lot of the Parks and Rec stuff in-house. They have access to it, but we do a lot of that stuff in-house. We've
Okay.
consolidated stuff. They do have access to it, but I think Ken and Tom are still managing it.
All right.
What would you think about just considering merging the main township Facebook page with the Parks and Rec?
We discussed that, I believe that was in 2022 when we sat down with them, and they said most of their municipal clients have one for township, Parks and Rec, and police. So we're following their guidance.
I seldom look at that one, and I did recently. It's like there's a lot of really good stuff on there. And I thought a lot of this stuff should be included on the township's main page. Just my thought. Anyway.
Thank you for sharing. Okay. We had a motion in a second.
Yes. Yes.
All in favor of approval of the treasurer's report, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries 3-0. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Have a good night, everybody.
I need signatures tonight, so all 3 days.
This,